to our council chambers. Thank you, community, for being here tonight. As we commence, I ask that you please silence your electronic devices and refrain from creating any disruptive sounds. This time, I encourage our audience and staff and council, please stand. I invite Pastor Howard Young from the New Beginnings Ministry of Love Church to lead us in tonight's invocation, followed by Freddie Ortiz Jr. to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Freddie is entering the 5th grade at Davidson Elementary School. He's the son of San Bernardino Police employee Rhiannon Ortiz. Welcome and thank you both. Pastor Young.
I believe it's on. Thank you. God bless everyone that is here today. And we bow our heads. Oh, gracious and Heavenly Father, we thank you today. First of all, for waking us up this morning, starting us on our way. God, we thank you for the mindset that you have given us on this evening to come together, Father, to gather together in your name, to take care of issues, look at the different things that's going on in our city to make our city better. God, I ask that you bless each and every council person, each and every city official, each and every one that has the makeup of San Bernardino County. God, we ask that you bless our city. Bless us to come together, empower us to come together, Father God, with the ideas and things that we can to encourage one another to make this a better place to live, to work. God, I just ask you now to bless each and every one that even came out on this day to hear what's going on in our great city. Bless our great city. Bless our great people, Father God, that are heading our city on today. We ask that you bless them and keep them in your perfect will as we go further into this day. In Jesus' name, amen.
Everybody put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Pastor Young. And we appreciate you, Freddie. Thank you very much. City Attorney, is there anything to report from the closed session?
Mayor, council members, members of the public, we had several closed session items, but there's no reportable action this evening.
Very good. Moving on to our presentation portion. At this time, I welcome Adan Chavez of NALEO to join us at the podium to present for the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. Mr. Chavez, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Valdivia, Mayor Pro Tem Richard, and members of the San Bernardino City Council. My name is Adan Chavez, and I am the Regional Census Campaign Manager for San Bernardino and Riverside counties with the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials, or the NALEO Educational Fund, the nation's leading nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that facilitates full Latino participation and the participation of all Americans in our political process. On behalf of NALEO, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak about redistricting and the California Citizens Redistricting Commission, a once-in-a-decade opportunity to map our future. And I don't believe the clicker is working. There we go. So why do we do redistricting? After the 2020 census, our nation will have new information about the size of population in each state and in every community. We use this information to draw the lines for congressional seats and the state and local government districts. But why do we engage in redistricting after the census? The United States Constitution requires that political districts have the same number of residents. This is the principle of population equality, otherwise known as one person, one vote. The goal of population equality is to make sure that each political representative in a jurisdiction represents the same number of people. After the census is finished, district boundaries must be redrawn to even out the size of each district, and it happens at all levels of government. Over time, people move from one area to the other, and the population in districts change. Because of this, districts become uneven in size during the course of a decade. Just think about the population of San Bernardino now versus the population of San Bernardino 10 years ago. This is exactly the reason why we go through redistricting every 10 years. Can we go ahead and move it to the next slide? There we go. Perfect. Since data are used for redistricting, we cannot have a fair redistricting without a fair and accurate Census 2020. So why does redistricting matter? Redistricting affects whether different population groups have a say in the outcome of elections. The way lines are drawn also affects the way district communities that share political, social, and economic interests are placed in. And finally, when communities who share similar interests are in the same district, they have a better opportunity to elect candidates who are responsive to their issues and concerns. In 2008, California enacted Proposition 11. Before Prop 11, the California legislature was in charge of drawing 4 sets of districts: Congress, State Assembly, State Senate, and the Board of Equalization. After Proposition 11, a new Citizens Redistricting Commission draws the districts for the State Assembly, State Senate, and the Board of Equalization. The commission is made up of 14 California voters, and individuals such as yourselves or the very same people in this room may be able to apply for the commission. So what are exactly the responsibilities of commissioners? What do commissioners do? First and foremost, they determine how the commission will operate, including the number of hearings that's done and the process for deliberation. They also hire staff and consultants. They listen and review testimony and ask critical questions to the public and community-based organizations. They develop and review drafts of different maps, too many maps, in accordance with criteria. And finally, they deliberate and approve final maps. There are a couple restrictions, though, however, for commissioners who are served in current elected or appointed office. First, it's important to know that the commission term service is about 10 years. And because of this, commissioners, 1, are prohibited from holding elected public office in California at the federal, state, county, or city level for at least 10 years after appointment to the commission. And 2, commissioners are prohibited from holding many appointed public offices in California, also at the federal, state, county, and even city level for at least 5 years after the appointment to the commission. If you have any questions of whether or not you're eligible to serve, we invite you to call the State Auditor's Office at 833-421-7550. All of us have a very critical role to play to ensure that the city of San Bernardino is represented in California's democracy. We need to make sure that the commissioners truly reflect the demographic and geographic diversity of our state. So this is what you can do to make sure that that happens. 1, of course, become informed about the redistricting process and the commission. Consider applying for the commission, even if it catches your interest from this presentation. 3, encourage your colleagues and friends to apply. Even if you're not eligible or not interested, you may know someone who is. And finally, help us spread the word. I'm happy to share that the application to apply to be part of this commission has been extended, and now all applications are due August 19th. So it is urgent that we get the word out in our community and identify candidates who can apply. This process is important because it gives our community the unique opportunity to ensure fair representation in this third-party commission. The application only takes about 10 minutes, and you can find the application on the State Auditor's website. Please do not hesitate to contact me about the commission application. We want to make sure that our community members are supported in this process. So we invite you to stay in touch with us and reach out for help. Thank you all so much.
Mr. Chavez, thank you very much for your presentation. That is a new updated deadline. I know that it was this Friday, and we're grateful for the extension. I want to encourage and highlight this process. This is a very important process, and we want to encourage San Bernardino City residents to apply. It's very important that your voice is heard and that this process, wouldn't it be great if we had one of our very own city residents on this commission? And we again thank you, Mr. Chavez.
Thank you so much, Member.
This time we will move on to any representative from the San Bernardino City Chamber of Commerce. Are there any comments, announcements? Moving on to Andrea Harlan from the office of Congressman Aguilar. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and residents. I'm Andrea Harlan, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Congressman Pete Aguilar. I just want to share information about 2 upcoming community events that the Congressman is going to host this month. So the first is a citizenship fair. So here's the flyer, and there are some in the back for you. So this event is for legal permanent residents who want help navigating the process of becoming a naturalized citizen. It can be a little tricky. So what we've done is provided resource providers, United States Immigration Services, the Department of State, and a bunch of nonprofits are going to be there to offer information and help guide you through this process. So the Citizenship Fair is going to be Saturday, August 17th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Inland Education Center. So we all know that's down the street on East Street. And again, I have flyers in the back if you would like the address. So I too am here on census business as well, and I'm so glad that Adan was here to talk about the importance of the census. Our next community event is going to be on Thursday, August 22nd, and it's going to be a census recruitment day. So 2020 census is coming up very quickly, and the United States Census Bureau has many positions in the San Bernardino area available to citizens to apply for. Okay, so at the recruitment day, we're going to have the Census Bureau recruiters at the location who can answer all the questions you have about these different positions available. You know, if you want to know how flexible the hours are, what the pay is, what the day entails in different occupations. So they'll be there to answer questions and also to guide you through the application process, which is pretty quick and easy. So Census Recruitment Day is Thursday, August 22nd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the America's Job Center in San Bernardino. A lot of us know this building as EDD, and that's off Hospitality Lane right off the 10 freeway. And I would like to thank Mayor Pro Tem Richard for all the assistance she's provided our office as we are going through the planning process for this event. So, Citizenship Fair, Saturday, August 17th, 10 a.m., Inland Education Center. Census Recruitment Day, Thursday, August 22nd, 10 a.m. at the America's Job Center of San Bernardino. Thank you so much for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harlan. At this time, I'll recognize Councilman Nickel for a point of order matter.
Yeah, Madam City Attorney, I have been asked to raise an emergency item to be placed on tonight's agenda. Is it appropriate at this time to make such a motion?
You can make the motion. You'll have to both state that the item came up after the posting of the agenda, but most importantly, you'd have to state the reasons why it's urgent and why immediate action has to be taken now versus waiting until your next council meeting.
Sure. I would like to move an emergency item to discuss and take possible action on a development taking place at the corner of 27th Street and Little Mountain. It is a location for, or proposed location for the new Human Services Transitional Assistance Department Social Services Facility. The facility is currently under construction, and I just received the original RFP, request for proposal, on that project that I think has a relevance to the project approvals and the potential of the need to go back and have staff revisit the permit that was issued to determine whether a specific use is intended for the site that was not originally applied for. So I would like to make a motion to the effect to add that item as a discussion item to take possible action this evening to refer that permit, that project, back to staff for consideration of a conditional use permit as required under our development code.
Okay, Okay, I would just like to add a comment on that. I wonder, and maybe we need to ask staff this question, if you were to delay making that request for 2 weeks so that it could be properly agendized, would you be able to do that?
My only concern is the timeliness as the project is currently under construction, and I do not want to adversely affect the property owner by delaying this action or adversely affect the community through a delayed action. I do feel that because the project is currently under construction, immediate action is required.
Thank you, Councilman Nichols. So stated the urgency and matter. Now this is a policy matter before the council. Is there council support to on a second?
I will second.
Very good. So second. Councilman Sanchez? Very good. Discussion on the addition of this item to tonight's calendar. Councilman Charette.
Yeah, I have a question about the urgency of this thing. I'm not sure what we can do tonight with discussion. I fully understand that it's been publicized and there's been quite a bit of information out there about this. And I'm not going to say I have some concerns myself, but I think it's worthy of some discussion. But I'm just not sure that it really requires the urgency. I don't think we're going to have much impact on either the continued building or unless we are able tonight to say that we can go out there and stop their construction tomorrow.
Right. One thing that you could potentially do, the only reason I ask about this urgency issue is because I am concerned about whether the applicant themselves will be provided proper due process. That's my main concern. I understand there's an urgency, but I just want to make sure, and maybe after I listen to council, I can consult with the city manager if there's an effective way to do what you're trying to accomplish tonight.
I think my intent is to direct staff to engage the applicant and to allow staff the opportunity now to assess the now intended use of the site, which differs from the original use of the site as stipulated by the applicant's original permit and development application.
Additionally, there are several public members that have expressed concerns that are here tonight. So this is now more of a policy matter. So discussion.
Again, and I agree with all that. My question again is what impact can we have tomorrow? I mean, we have to do something tomorrow, I think, in order to.
Yes.
I think my only request tonight is to give staff that direction rather than delay the authorization to staff to take that direction for another 2 weeks.
So I don't believe that you would necessarily have to add that up to the agenda. What you could do as we get back to the council portion, when you give direction to staff, we do add items to the agenda at the request of a council member or at the direction of a majority of the council. You could direct your staff to bring it back to you at the next agenda with a complete analysis of why they did what they did and what some alternatives might be.
Well, again, my concern is that we'll add another 2-week delay to the timeline, and I want staff to be able to engage immediately with this developer to assess whether or not a specific use is intended for this site and now constitutes the need for a conditional use permit under our development code. And I think that discussion needs to take place between staff and the applicant immediately. And I want to make sure that the council gives that direction and that authority to staff. I don't want to put staff in a difficult position. I want them to know they have the full backing of the city council that this is the action that needs to be taken.
Very good. Are there any, we need to move on, but we have a second. Are there any policy discussion issues? If not, council.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Sanchez.
The government code does allow this council to use its discretion to decide 502 something. If there is an issue that is brought up that the council was not aware of, that could not have been aware of beforehand, and this council has a right to not litigate, but has the right to discuss this issue.
I just want to remind you, it's 2 findings. The item has to have come up to your attention prior to the posting of the agenda. Did this item come up to your attention as council members prior to the date the agenda was posted? That's one finding. That's not discretion. That's a fact. So were you aware of this item prior to the date the agenda was posted? You get to determine that, but that's a fact. The second thing is, do you have to take immediate action? Will there be some damage to the city if you don't take immediate action.
I would like to call the question, call the vote.
Very good. Having heard from our staff, we appreciate it. If we'd open the voting, and are there any other comments from policymakers? Yes.
I would just like to hear from the city manager.
Very good. Ms. City Manager.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember, I want to assure you that we started this process as soon as it came to our attention, so you can vote on it, but we've already started this process, and the Community Development Director is currently looking
Very
into
good.
it.
Thank you, Ms. City Manager. We'll open the votes, and members would please cast their vote.
Voice vote, Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mr. Charette? Mr. Nichol?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Mulvihill?
Very good. The item passes. And Mr. Nichol, where exactly would you like this placed on the agenda tonight?
If we can put it at the end of the staff reports.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. We are moving on to our public comment section, and we're grateful for our public comments. At this time, we will encourage individuals who want to address the council to please fill out a slip. We'll be closing it shortly here. We have plenty of public speakers. We are asking that we use both podiums, and I don't know, Ms. City Clerk, do we have the noticing on, someone told me that there was some type of novel new device that you might employ tonight.
It is not new. I've used it before.
Okay.
But generally how it works is if you read their name, I will put it in here, and then it will come up. So
Perfect.
after you read the
Okay.
name there.
We'll do that cooperatively tonight. So your name will be up on the screen, so we ask that you please get on deck, and let's expedite tonight's meeting efficiently and productively, please. I will call several names: Harry Hatch, Hardy Brown, Cheryl Brown, Chris Kim. Harry Hatch, Hardy Brown, Cheryl Brown, Chris Kim. Mr. Hatch, welcome. 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. First off, I'd like to take a moment of silence for our two new sister cities, Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas. They are going through what we went through ourselves. Least we forget what happened here. Thank you. Now then, going on further, we have a small problem, I believe, in reporting of certain Part 1 crimes. That Part 1 crime is arson. It does not appear as though it is being reported by the city's police department or the county's fire department to the point where it goes to the FBI and the Department of Justice. Therefore, we're not getting the ability to apply for grants under some of those federal stats because we don't have arsons. There are no arsons reported in the city of San Bernardino within the last year. Yet in 2015, there were 26 of 36 structure fires that were reported as arsons. This appears to be somewhat of a minor problem that may reach out a little further. And then naturally, I'm continuing to gather information on fireworks. I am hoping to get a piece of paper for you to look at that'll give you some idea about what it is really costing the city to have fireworks sold within the city. Remember, and again, I say, fireworks do no good. They burn and they blow up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hatch. Hardy Brown.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Council. Hardy Brown asked me to read for him the following. I send my condolences to my fellow Americans in Dayton, Ohio, 9 killed, where my son lived for a brief while, and to El Paso, Texas, 22 killed, where the largest killing of Latinos took place ever in the history of our country. It reminds me of when the whites were killing over 300 blacks in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in a neighborhood called Black Wall Street in 1921. This kind of hate is being driven from a political party that has remained silent while its leaders spit out hateful and divisive racial and religious rhetoric that has no place in our society. I know you feel helpless, but consider passing a resolution at your next meeting to denounce that kind of language from the White House in the name of the many victims killed by hate groups. I want to thank the mayor on behalf of the Westside Action for being our Westside Action group for being our guest speaker on Monday. They are looking forward to a return visit that you suggested, so expect the invitation soon from our president. They would like to eventually have all council members as guest speakers, including the city manager. I read in the agenda that you are seeking to approve and establish a public affairs specialist position and a community engagement specialist position in the city's manager's office. I know you have a vacancy in the assistant city manager's position, so once again I point out that the lack of representation from the black community in that office. Maybe that's why. I also read where you are hiring another law firm, Liebert, Cassidy, Whitmore, in Los Angeles from outside of our community to handle lawsuits, current or anticipated, dealing with employment discrimination. From my 30 years of working employment discrimination complaints and lawsuits, they are the result of bad decisions made by managers and supervisors when they recruit, hire, promote, give work assignments, and performance evaluations to take disciplinary action and make inappropriate racial, sexual, or religious statements / jokes in the workplace. I know that that firm has at least 2 black lawyers, but I don't know if we have local firms that engage in this kind of employment law.
Ms. Brown, your time is up.
Huh?
Your time is up.
Oh, remember, this is for him, not me.
I have another slip for you.
But that's mine.
Okay.
This is his. Okay, I'm almost finished. I see so much alleged discrimination in the city. And also, this is more tax dollars leaving our city. That's from Mr. Brown. Now, from me.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. We'll reset the clock for 3 minutes for Ms. Brown, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Welcome to the library. On behalf of the Library Foundation, I think I'm probably the only member here, of the Library Board, Foundation Board. I wanted to also say that there's a couple of things. Mr. Chavez spoke about the redistricting process. Everybody here should be concerned about that, because in the last redistricting process, I fought like everything to keep San Bernardino, the whole city, in the same assembly district, in the same Senate district, and we were cut right in half. And you can tell that's why we don't have the things that we have. The other thing I wanted to say, that on behalf of the State Commission on Aging, the governor has passed a master plan on aging. I think it's something that we need to start having our city talk about as being an age-friendly city. It's very, very important. That's happening everywhere. The last thing I'd like to talk about is the American Girl Tea Party. We have an American Girl doll tea party here on the 24th of August, Saturday at 2 p.m., and we would love to have you come out. You really do have to RSVP, and you have to RSVP right away because our place has been cut down. That's we can't use the second half of the Mary Kellogg room, and we don't have any more room in the building that we can do that with. but I would love to invite little girls and little boys to come to the tea party. The master gardeners as well as the master preservers are going to be the program. They will learn how to plant and they will learn how to can some food while they're here. So I have flyers for anybody who might want them, and I'll leave them back on the back. And I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chris Kim, followed by Gregory Taylor, followed by Russell Degnan, followed by David Maya. If we could please begin the lineup. Thank you. Chris Kim, Gregory Taylor, Russell Degnan, and David Moya.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Kim,
Honorable
welcome.
Mayor and distinguished council members. My name is Chris Kim, and I'm from KP Investments. I just read in the newspaper that there's going to be Ms. Miller is going to sue the city, and also all the papers are saying that San Bernardino City will be back in bankruptcy within the next 3 years. So, and this is predicted by multiple newspapers, by the way. And also there was another, I don't know, some kind of my mind is going blank. It was voted one of the top 10 worst cities in California. And one of the comments says that even Fontana and Rialto is laughing, looking over at San Bernardino. This is how bad San Bernardino gotten over the last 10 years or so. We need to do something. City needs revenue, period. That's it. I don't care how you get it, get it. There was a long video on the YouTube about they drove everywhere in San Bernardino, and there were half of them are eroded, and half of them are dirt, basically. That's the kind of city where residents are living in, and all these businesses are empty. There's so many commercial buildings they're empty. How are you going to get the revenue for the city to stay away from bankruptcy again? I just don't see it. And also, one of the agenda, I don't know if you said you probably won't talk about it today, but nibble this. There are the number 4 and 5. Now, I have their lawsuit paperwork right here. According to the lawsuit, the plaintiff, they didn't have the lease on their property since May of last year. Now that's during the application phase. So what I've read is that they just got the letter saying that they qualify for the property, which was the number 1 requirement to get apply for the license, and then they disappeared. And by the way, they lease it under Los Angeles Church LLC, which is an illegal dispensary. So they've been doing all these illegal shops all over, Southern California for years, and they're trying to go legitimate now in San Bernardino. And you're going to allow that to happen? It's unfair. Lastly, you were short on manufacturing license. So we were micro-license applicant. If you give us a
Mr. Kim,
we're glad to switch.
Thank you. Your time is up. Mr. Taylor, welcome. Followed by Russell Degnan. Mr. Taylor, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm here again. I'm going to say this to all the constituents in the audience that if we use our resources, I speak with the mayor, I speak with his community liaisons, I speak with my councilwoman, and if you report your CRMs, things will get done. I am living proof. I'm on the phone with Jackie, I'm on the phone with Don, and if you call into 384-7272, they will take a CRM, they'll take down your phone number, they'll ask for your email, and they will send you a copy of that CRM. They will let you know when it gets resolved. If you do not, and I do this, I will go driving around the city where I reported the CRM to see if it's been resolved. If it has not been resolved, I call Jackie. I call Ms. Richard. I will even call the city council. I've called the mayor's office. But I will say this, don't complain if you don't take action. We are the eyes, we are the ears of our community and our city. I was here for something else because I wanted to challenge the city planner. But some of my questions were answered with, I don't know your name, Councilman, but some of the things were answered. I'm a construction worker, so everything that you were saying, I had answers to. So people, constituents, you gotta use the resources. They're there. But I do challenge my PD in my area. I live over by San Bernardino, Cal State San Bernardino. I made a report. They came out the first week. It was great. 6 weeks later, I see no patrols. The homeless is back. The trash dumping is back. And I challenge my police chief to have his patrols in that area to make sure that my area and my city, I don't care where it is in the city, is taken care of. Because I'm going to be eyes and ears for him, my mayor, and my city council, and the constituents of the city. I'm willing to work for you, and this is nothing for me. I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't need to pay. I don't need pay. I just need eyes out there. So report what you see, and we will get things done.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. That's inspiring advice for our public. Mr. Degnan, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. I'm going to be brief. I'm just here really to, on item 20, congratulate the city. It's exciting. I hope that it goes through as we plan it to be. We love to collaborate. I'm Russell Degnan with Operation New Hope. We've been in the city for 4 years. We've got a youth opportunity downtown on West 7th Street where we provide many resources for youth. We collaborated with the Urban Conservation Corps, Ms. Bonilla and her team, the mayor. We look at this as to being a mayor's youth workforce team grant, but really to also give them life skills, diversion skills, to not go into that system that we far too often see students going into. So I'm just here to say thank you for letting us be part of this team, and we look forward to a good 4 years doing great work with you guys. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Degnan. Our next speaker, David Maya, Martha, Robert from SoCal Gas, and Thomas Fleming. Martha, Robert from SoCal Gas. There you are, sir. Thomas Fleming, Shirley Harlan. Mr.
Thank
Maya,
you.
welcome, sir. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council, I want to thank you for all of your services. But I'm here for tonight in regards to the transitional assisted living that's going to be on 27th and Little Mountain that was proposed tonight, and putting it special on the special. I didn't know that was going to happen. I'm glad to see that you're taking action on it because it is very urgent. My name is David Maya, and I am a president of the Homeowners Association for the Fairway Park Homeowners Association, which is a 108 unit complex at the on the golf course there at Shannon Hills. And I have a lot of citizens that are in uproar over this because they feel that it was a transaction that was slipped under by the city, some dirty pool, some dirty politics, and we don't appreciate it. We don't appreciate as well that there was, from what I understand, a delayed traffic study that is going to create problems for that area. There's already trouble with the traffic going up and down Little Mountain, and it's going to get worse. So I'm here to voice that opinion on behalf of the residents of my association, of the citizens of that ward, and I really want the board to take into consideration. I understand they've already started. They're in the process of, they've already broken ground. So I'm concerned about that very much. I don't know how that happened, but I think there's some questions that need to be answered to the city over that. So I thank you for your time, and I just wanted to voice that opinion. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you for your service to our community. Our next speaker is Martha. Okay. Robert from SoCal Gas. Sir, welcome. You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff, good evening. My name is Robert Visconti. I'm a Regional Affairs Manager for Southern California Gas Company here in the Inland Empire. Many of you know our Public Affairs Manager, Christine Scott, who unfortunately had to attend her own city's council meeting tonight. I'm here tonight to encourage you to adopt Resolution 2019-261, which SoCalGas is referring to as a Balanced Energy Resolution. The state of California is considering mandates towards electrification, thus moving towards a single energy source and not recognizing the risk to our communities through increased costs and the threat of diminished reliability. The proposals to force us to electrify are being made in the name of global warming, reducing greenhouse gases, and carbon emissions. These goals are admirable. But cost-benefit analysis and environmental analysis does not justify such drastic actions. And you, me, business owners, and residents of San Bernardino will pay this cost. Natural gas is a clean-burning, abundant, and affordable energy and has been part of California's clean air solution and should continue to be. Let me be clear, SoCalGas does not oppose electrification. If you only want to use electric appliances in your business and home, that is your choice. Simply said, there are two main issues, and California should focus on these. One, NOx emissions, the emissions from burning fossil fuels that cause smog. Largest NOx contributors are the heavy-duty, medium-duty trucks and off-road equipment on all the freeways surrounding us. Cummins makes an engine that is near zero natural gas, 90% reduction here. The other issue, greenhouse gas, letting raw natural gas go to the atmosphere. The largest contributor there is dairy farms, livestock, landfills, and wastewater treatment plants. SoCalGas has a plan to capture those, put them in the pipeline. I would ask you not to adopt the second resolution, 2019-262, which again appears to be a little plagiarized from our own and just has some derogatory language towards natural gas and I guess other energy sources. Balanced energy portfolio for 115 years. Natural gas has been mandated a fuel of choice for electric generation in California. SoCalGas is committed to being the cleanest natural gas utility in the United States, and we have provided you separately information regarding new technologies that can and will be utilized to make our communities more sustainable, carbon neutral, RNG, power to gas, and hydrogen. I'm very proud to be from Inland Empire. SoCalGas has maintained membership in the Chamber for over 100 years. I've personally been a member of Inland Action for 18 years, traveling to Sacramento and Washington, D.C. to advocate for our San Bernardino communities. Over these many years, I've come to know many community and business leaders that support this initiative. If this was a chamber and every business in this room said they could double their receipts, I would applaud that.
Thank you.
Except for the utilities.
Thank you,
We should
sir.
not be doing that.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker
Thank
is Thomas Fleming. Mr. Fleming, welcome, sir. How are you?
Very well. How are you, sir?
You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I run a lot in this town. I live right down the street. And what I do notice is I notice a lot of homeless. I notice a lot of trash. Everybody's like, yes, that's obvious. Yes, it is obvious. What isn't obvious is there's a place called Amazon, which you have in the city. It's the richest company, the fourth richest company in the world. The fourth richest company in the world. It also has the owner, the richest person in the world, is right here in San Bernardino. The richest person in the world has 4 locations in San Bernardino, which San Bernardino is one of the poorest cities in the country. How does that make sense? I don't think it really does. I don't think it's that logical to me. If any of you are logical thinkers, I don't think it makes sense to you either. I had a neighbor He's a great guy, right down the street on Newcomb. He's homeless now. He's on drugs, and I saw him one day. He's deathly ill. I thought he was like, he's so close to death right now. And he goes to this gentleman's church right here. Thank you for your prayer this morning, this evening. With a prayer like that, you read the Bible, Jesus didn't treat homeless like San Bernardino does. Okay? Jesus was about helping the homeless. Okay? Where's the homeless shelter here? Where's the homeless shelter? You don't care. People are dying on the street. They're walking around deathly ill, and it's disgusting. So many places have homeless shelters, and they care for the homeless. And they give them, the opportunities to become citizens, productive citizens in their communities. All I see here is the Walking Dead every day when I go running. It's horrible. You're smiling. Is it a good thing? Do you think it's a good thing? It's horrible to me. It's tragic to me, okay? We have the richest person in the world right here in San Bernardino, has 4 locations. All I'm asking you is do your job, be politicians, like they did in the old days. Hey, can we get some help, maybe? This guy, he can do anything he wants with his billions. He makes $1 billion a year. Average income here is $14,000. That's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. He makes so much more. So if you took 100,000 people in San Bernardino, he makes more than that 100,000 a year. Pathetic. We need to do something. You need to use your voices, your hearts. Reach into your hearts. Love.
Thank you,
Love
Mr.
is key.
Fleming. Your time
Thank you
is
very
up.
much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Shirley Harlan, followed by Luis, followed by Loida Crespo and Jose Gonzalez. Ms. Harlan, hold on, Ms. Harlan, just a minute. Luis, Ms. Negrete, Loida Crespo, and Jose Gonzalez. Ms. Harlan, Mr. Fleming.
Shirley Harlan. Our Republican democracy is at a tipping point. Words matter. Toni Morrison, the most important American author, has died, and during her Nobel lecture in 1993, addressed how language can be weaponized in racism. Oppressive language does more than represent violence. It is violence, and does more than represent the limits of knowledge. It limits knowledge. Toni Morrison was also talking on Charlie Rose's show, and she said, "If I take race away, and there you are, all strung out, and all you got is your little self, what is that? What are you without racism? Are you any good? Are you still strong? Are you still smart? Do you still like yourself?" She said, I mean that these are the questions. And part of it is, yes, the victim, how terrible it has been for black people. And she continued, I am not a victim. I refuse to be one. And if you can only be tall because somebody is on their knees, then you have a serious problem. And my feeling is that white people have a very, very serious problem. And they should start thinking about what they can do about it, and she wanted out of it. Well, I agree with her statements, and I am a white woman. I am a woman, but I'm not in the Constitution. So I am a victim too, and refuse to be so when I say during our flag pledge, add my action. And I say, not until the Equal Rights Amendment is passed. We must give thought to the action to take and reduce violence. I request the rest of my time in silence.
Our next speaker is Luis, followed by Mrs. Negrete, followed by Loida Crespo, followed by Jose Gonzalez. Luis, welcome.
Good evening, City Council members, Mayor Valdivia. My name is Luis Suarez, and I'm here on behalf of the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice. We are a coalition of 40 organizations that advocate for immigrant rights here in San Bernardino County. Today, I'm here to request that you stand with your vision of a city that offers a sustainable system of high-quality education, community health, and public safety. I repeat, public safety. I think we can all agree that local law enforcement has no business practicing immigration law or acting like ICE. Acting Chief McBride, as a mayor of the city of Hemet and as a cop, has advocated and pushed for policies that are not only against California law, but sow to distrust between immigrant communities and the local police. Some of these policies were such as SB 1070, that would allow local law enforcement to check people's immigration status based on reasonable suspicion, aka profiling, which I'm sure a few of the city council members and the mayor would have been subject to this. Everyday people, especially communities of color, already have a mistrust of police departments and are cautious when engaging them. Having McBride would only sow this mistrust deeper. In addition, if McBride continues to be acting chief and is considered to become a chief of police, he will continue to be a liability to the city. We are concerned police officers will be empowered to violate the California Values Act that limits the collaboration between local law enforcement and federal immigration enforcement agencies, and a result, the city will be sued. We have seen it with the San Bernardino sheriffs, in which the county paid $60,000 for their collaboration, and we just filed an administrative complaint along with the ACLU of Southern California for $1 million because the Corona Police Department decided to go ahead and turn somebody over to ICE. All we ask is that whoever the acting chief is and the next chief of police of San Bernardino that is appointed is somebody who cares about all the residents. We want to make sure that the city of San Bernardino is safe for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Esmeralda Negrete, followed by Loida Crespo, followed by Jose Gonzalez, followed by Sean Kelly. Ms. Negrete, you're recognized for 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening. I want to have it on the record that I agree with Ben Eilenberg when he stated that there's a violation going on. Those of you who were already here and those of you who were sitting in the audience and participating in active listening know that when that measure came through for cannabis, there was a mother and a brother who came coming to the city council meetings and pushing their agenda and pretty much boasting about saying that they were doing more than the minimum, because the minimum by state was 500 feet. And they restated over and over, we're doing better than them because the measure that they were submitting to our city was 600 feet. Not too long ago, you changed it to 0. And if I recall correctly, one of our city attorneys had said there was something in there that says that you can reduce it, but nothing in there stated that you could abolish, which is what's taken place. When you say 0, that's been an abolishment of that 600 feet to 0. Now, moving on, as council members, I believe that you have choices.
Ms. Negrete, excuse me. Clock's not started. Please proceed.
As council members, you have choices. We all know that you were elected, and you were not elected by one vote. You were not elected by John Valdivia. If you're counting on his support or you're counting on his reputation to be reelected, I think you're counting on something empty value. We have known this over and over. He got elected here because he made promises, and those promises have fallen in deaf ears, and some of you are supporting it blindly. I can't believe that you're doing this because you represent us, not him. John Valdivia, what you have done in the false promises, which got you elected and got you many votes, are far from Republican values. Republican values talk about smaller government. And no, you alone want to control the city. They talk about lower taxes. You and the majority of the council just elected to give a contract to support more taxes. I remember Ted Sanchez was at one of the neighborhood association meetings, and you promised no more taxes, but we're seeing this again. Ms. Ibarra, you were there, and there were other community members who witnessed this. Now, when it comes down to it, on the charter, section 308 gives you the right to recall, and according to that, it states that you can have him pull out of his seat. If you have the courage to represent the members, you can pull him because this is what he did. He gained that seat with false promises.
Thank you. Loida Crespo, followed by Jose Gonzalez, followed by Sean Kelly. Welcome, Ms. Crespo. How are you doing tonight?
Good evening. Very good.
Great. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm a resident of the city, and I'm a board member also of Blair Park Neighborhood Association. And I'm here to kind of share our concerns that our whole neighborhood and a big majority of our city actually has in regards to the new location of the Transitional Assistance Department. This has caused great grief, great stress to our neighbors. As you may or may not know, we're having a meeting tomorrow at Davidson Elementary School at 6:30. I urge all of you guys to come, because if we don't take action to find out what's going on and what's really affecting us as a whole, there's going to be a lot of trouble coming. And I encourage you to do something about it, because if we want San Bernardino to move forward strong, why affect areas that are already pretty strong as it is? We have a close-knit environment where we're at. The neighborhood where we live, that's where the new location is going to be happening. As a matter of fact, I drive by it every day, every morning, and I see construction keep going. That's why I think it's urgent that you guys put it, as a matter. Thank you. I appreciate that, Henry. And I spoke with a lot of neighbors. A lot of neighbors are concerned that we're going to be having a lot of homeless people walking around our neighborhoods, sitting on our curbs over in front of our houses, and not to mention the devaluing of our homes. We want to invite people to move into our neighborhoods, people who actually care about their homes, curb appeal. How is that going to happen if we allow a department like that to come so close to our homes? This is not, I support helping people. Location. This city has so many vacant properties, and also even buildings. Why have it so close in front of homes? I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but next to the current location where it's at, they drop off people, from other cities and other counties. Homeless people with mental illnesses that they don't know what to do with them, they drop them off right here in our city. The same thing's going to be happening here in our neighborhoods, even closer to our schools. Davidson Elementary, for example. I really urge you to please be there at that meeting, and if there's any power that you might guys have to stop construction, and as a matter of fact, to end it, or to relocate it somewhere else, because they were being very deceitful when it came to submitting plans for applications and all that. The way it got done was very, very wicked, honestly.
Thank you, ma'am. Jose Gonzalez, Sean Kelly, and Miss Gillum. Mr. Gonzalez, welcome, sir.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Good evening, City Mayor and City Council and residents of Elf. Well, I'm here on behalf of our Inland Empire Soccer Association here in San Bernardino. Basically, we're looking for rehab of our Nunez Park. That'll be a Ruben Campos soccer field. The turf field is really devastated. It's bad. It's in bad condition since the last maybe I'll say 10 years. And we're tired of having a broken ankle, broken legs, and all kind of soccer players issues there. We don't have the money to go to have any insurance. If we do have not most of the people work. They do play for fun, and we've been using it for the last 20, 30 years there. And that's the only change that we saw. That was 15 years ago when they put the turf. We used to play when there was nothing but dirt, sand, and not turf. It wasn't built right. That's my point of view. Too many gophers, too many squirrels, so we had too many holy issues there on the field. I sent pictures to the city council, to the city mayor, and we just asked for something that we, as the residents, can play safe. I'm a resident of San Bernardino for the last 31 years from El Paso, Texas. And so I'm just looking forward to stay here in San Bernardino. I love this place, and I'm really loving it. And I know, I believe and trust in this new government, and I know Mr. Valdivia will make this city stronger. And I got faith. I still got a faith in people, and people who's governing us. And once again, I'm asking for the rehab of our soccer field. I know we have priorities in this city. We all talk about our needs and on our behalfs, but I'm talking right now about our soccer community in San Bernardino that also residents, 100% San Bernardino residents from all over the city. And once again, I'm not here to cause any problems, but just finding solutions for us and for the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Sean Kelly via email. I
have her email, Mayor.
Okay, very good. And Ms. Gillum, Art Guerrero, Sandy Bonilla, Medea Gonzalez.
Okay.
Ms. Gillum, Art Guerrero, Sandy Bonilla, Medea Gonzalez. Ms. Gillum, just a second. Yes, Council Member Ibarra.
This is email from Sean Kelly in the 2nd Ward. Good evening. I'm unable to attend the City Council meeting tonight to speak in person, so I appreciate Councilperson Ibarra reading this letter during the public comments. As a president of the Paris Hill Neighborhood Association, I would like to address the issue of the county TAD office that is being considered for the Muscopiabi Blair Park neighborhood area. I believe it would be a mistake to place it at that location, even though it is a required distance from residents in the area. The TAD office next to my area is at 1895 North Del Rosa Avenue. It was placed across the street from the fire station on Del Rosa and the flood control channel that leads into the east side of Paris Hill Park. Despite the TAD offices are meant to bring to the needy citizens of our city, I have witnessed the negative impact that has occurred near and in my area. The flood control channel right behind the fire station and the east side of Paris Hill has become home to several homeless and has resulted in a noticeable increase in trash, much of which is visible from the city streets and in some cases residents' homes. The number of brush, trash fires on Paris Hill have increased over the past 5 months. One this month was right next to an apartment complex on Hillside. And just this afternoon, there was yet another fire on Paris Hill behind Pacific High. The county fire department has mentioned the probable source of the fires are from the homeless encampments in the area. On any day, you will see the sidewalks of both sides of Del Rosa lined with free government phone offers and other free government items. Often homeless are seen sleeping on sidewalks and grass easements of businesses. Some have been bold enough to trespass into residents' yards for shade and water. Panhandling in that area, at that area businesses near the Del Rosa TAD office, as well as trash accumulation along the area streets have increased. It is obvious that the number of homeless in the area has increased, overflowing from Del Rosa TAD office west onto Paris Hill Park and the St. Bernardines area. I have had area residents speak to me about how they are afraid to use Paris Hill Park, citing that they are aware that the Del Rosa TAD office is contributing to the problem. While the TAD office is offering services to one part of the city population, the impact of its presence is costing the area residents in multiple ways, creating safety concerns and decreasing property values. If you would like to see how a TAD office impacts an area and residents, drive by Del Rosa location. Ask the area businesses how they like having the TAD office there and what issues they are experiencing. I'm sure the Muscopiabi Blair Park residents that will be near the new TAD office that is being considered at 27th and Little Mountain will not likely have these type of problems overflowing into their neighborhoods. Please reconsider holding public hearings to let the neighbors have their chance to speak about what they think about having a welfare office placed in their neighborhood. Thank you, Sean Kelly.
Thank you. Ms. Gillum, welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm a resident here at 6th Ward for like 37 years. Been a resident of San Bernardino since 1968, and I was here in the 1970s when San Bernardino was an all-American city. Couldn't believe it. I'm a real estate appraiser by trade. I've been doing that for 37 years. My husband is an architect, has built everything from military facilities to homes to commercial buildings, and also we both work for the Olympics, building boxes out there, even the presidential box. And we like to volunteer our services too, because we have a vast amount of information and services that may help you. Now, even though the property zone commercial use, the highest and best use of the residents around there is actually residential. I can see right now increased traffic, homeless encampments, trash, debris, open sewers, increased crime. One of the main things you look at as far as your property value is the location of places like this. Locational influences do make a big difference in property values. And if you have people there that are encamped out in those areas, things like that, it is going to affect your property values. Now, I always have a person that, likes to have some kind of solutions. If this does happen, law enforcement needs to be there to monitor the situation pre and post construction. There'd be no homeless encampments at all allowed, no loitering. Help set up neighborhood watch to provide more training to residents on the Go Request app, and also all these developments you have right now and land you have right now. We have plenty of places to help people, whatever, and you need to utilize some of that. There need to be a second entrance and exit to that site. Plans for surrounding vacant lots need to be addressed. What are the future plans for existing commercial buildings? Maintain and landscape that area, so beautification if it's going to be there. No more development without proper notification, because we didn't get any. Okay. Research other sites for future development. That freeway came in, and I don't know who was involved with that, but there's no entrance there going to the 210 East. We got to go a mile away to try to get onto that freeway. We have been abused and used long enough, and people have not taken us seriously. And it's time for citizens to start waking up and doing that. This is a side issue here, because I only have a few minutes. For people that didn't grow up in the South, which I did in the 60s and 50s, and my parents were in Florida, the lynching capital of the United States, we know what real racism looks like or whatever, okay? It is an insult to us when I hear people talking about racism because somebody called you a name. I don't give a crap. Nobody's lynching you, stop you from going to school and doing a lot of things we weren't allowed to do because the law didn't allow it, okay? Stop and look, okay? You can't be madder than me or my parents. If you watch Barbershop, my dad and his friends in their 80s and 90s, they look just like that. Why are those people so happy they had all that going on? You guys really need to examine yourself. It's not racism, what's going on, whatever. It's this whiny baby stuff that we couldn't deal with. We still had to work and be who we were without all this stuff, and no laws protect you. And so I need people to stop doing that, stop using that term if you're not involved in there, and stop acting like you're madder than me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gillum. Our next speaker is Art Guerrero, Sandy Bonilla, Mireya Gonzalez, Treasurer Ortiz. Mr. Guerrero, welcome.
Yeah. First and foremost, want to thank all of you up there for listening to your constituents and moving us out of that cracker jack box. The last attendant, I had to stand an hour and a half because I can't really stand before I secured a seat. And that was because of a kind young lady who gave me your seat. Excuse me. Second of all, I'm here to talk about, a lot of people know me from the City Hall tracker, and I have a lot of snarky remarks on there. The time for being snarky remarks are done for me. But I come from the land that time is forgotten, in the valley. You know where the valley's at? Central Avenue, Tippecanoe. I think that, I know you're busy, but we've been forgotten down there. Nobody pays attention to us. So I don't know, am I crazy or what I'm going to do? I think I'm going to have to start up a neighborhood association over there. I can't serve as president because I'm very limited now, but I have the know-how. We used to have one for 5 years, and I'm kind of nervous because I'm going, what am I getting myself into? But I'm going to leave my number out there. It's 909-885-4053. If anybody down the southeast wants to join, please give me a call, leave me a message, and I'll call you back. That's the only way we're going to get any attention down there. I think that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Guerrero. We appreciate your involvement. Mr. Guerrero, you bring up a very good point. I want to express my deep appreciation to our staff, our city manager. Thank you very much for all of the hard work to get us here. We know that it's difficult to move everything over here, and we appreciate the accommodations. We thank our library board, and this is a great, great facility, and it's seen some recent improvements, and we're excited to showcase it. So let's extend a hand of appreciation to our staff. We thank you. Our next speaker is Sandy Bonilla, followed by Mireya Gonzalez, followed by Treasurer Tees, followed by Lynn Ware. Sandy Bonilla.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sandy Bonilla, and I am the founder, or one of the founders of the Urban Conservation Corps, which is started right here at San Bernardino nearly 12 years ago. My late husband was Bobby Vega. Many of you might have known who he was. There's a park named after him. And I've continued advocating and working with young people at San Bernardino. I'm actually on my 20th year now. And the reason I'm here is for line item 20, which some of you might have seen months ago. My brother, Tony Cifuentes, we came up to ask about the Youth Reinvestment Grant. It was a state grant, and it was for diversion. And we came and we asked if this is something that the city would be interested in. And I'm very happy to announce, and I want to thank Mayor John Valdivia and the city manager's office, is that we competed for this grant among cities like Long Beach, cities all over the state of California, and we won it. $1 million. Okay, we won that. Now, let me tell you the importance of this grant. It's a diversion grant. And the importance of it is this, is that it's not just a program. We are also working with two very top criminologists that are looking at the methodology, the modalities that we'll be using to divert young people. These are the 13, 14, 15-year-olds that instead it's alternative sentencing. In other words, we don't need to put some of our young people that, that are very young, we don't need to lock them up immediately. We need to give them to alternatives and then work with them so that we're not penetrating them into the systems. We're really trying to change some of the disparities right now with incarceration. I've been in this business now for almost 30 years, and I've seen where so many young people, especially Latinos and African Americans, they get placed in the system a lot quicker, and they're actually, and the research is showing that they actually move deeper into the justice system. And so diversion really is a very, it's an evidence-based practice, and if it's done correctly and done right, we can prevent and divert many San Bernardino kids from getting locked up. Now, and this is the one thing that the whole program is looking at, is to really emphasize on diversion, counseling, wraparound counseling, and also restorative justice. So they will be helping with the parks, making sure that the parks are also a help along the way. But anyway, I just wanted to thank again Mayor Valdivia. We could not have done this without you. Also, we want to thank Rebecca Kramer and also David Miranda, who's not here right now, but David Miranda was very instrumental in helping that. And so when this item does come up, we just hope that it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gonzalez, welcome.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mireya Gonzalez. I'm a community organizer with the Coalition for Humane Immigrants' Rights, CHIRLA, here in San Bernardino, and also I'm a San Bernardino resident for the last 16 years. And I will say this in Spanish because I want to represent my speaker Spanish community. Estoy representando aquí a mi comunidad inmigrante en oposición a la posible selección y confirmación del señor Eric McBride como jefe de policía en San Bernardino. Durante estos tiempos, donde nuestra comunidad hispana está siendo atacada muy duramente, el alcalde y los concejales de la ciudad de San Bernardino deberían nominar a una persona que quiera trabajar para la comunidad en general y para la muy diversa comunidad que vive aquí en San Bernardino. Como concejal de GEMET, el señor McBride introdujo una resolución en apoyo de la SB 1070. Fue una ley antiinmigrante en Arizona, la cual dividió mucho a nuestra nación. Y después de la cual tres de sus componentes fueron declarados inconstitucionales por la Corte Suprema de Estados Unidos. Hoy tenemos un presidente que continúa dividiendo a la comunidad latina y a la comunidad inmigrante, y no podemos permitir que esto también ocurra en San Bernardino, donde más del 60% de la población es latina y es muy diversa. Le urgimos al alcalde y concejales que rechacen al señor McBride como posible siguiente jefe de la policía en la ciudad de San Bernardino. Gracias.
Thank you. Treasurer Teese, you're recognized, ma'am, for 3 minutes.
So, Basine, you said something during the last meeting that's been going over in my mind, which is that you feel that things have gone left. And, you know, the truth is that this council has gone south. Because what you guys just did with the TAD building is going to bring litigation here. Why? Because Sandra was on Facebook on July 22nd talking about this issue with the public. Henry, you were in the Sun on the 31st talking about this issue. The agenda wasn't posted till August 2nd. So tell me this is an immediate response. Because what was really happening is someone wants to pretend that the city of San Bernardino, nobody knew a building was going up, what it was used for. Nobody asked a question during the permit process. Nobody asked the question during the traffic control. It was just, hey, in the middle of nowhere, you owe the residents the opportunity to show up and hear a real reason why this building went through without knowledge. Because this didn't happen yesterday. This was in 2017. And now we're in 2019 and people, oh, mea culpa, no idea, this is a surprise to us all. Give me a break. And these are the things that continually happen in our city. You're going to see Z&K come onto the agenda again tonight, still listed as a primary in the city of San Bernardino, giving $150,000. They already awarded another $150,000. Fred, for the love of God, what city employee are we giving $350,000 to in less than a 6-month stint to provide work? Why? Because they're friends that came out of Upland together? That's reason enough. You give HR money to go to an outside firm for class and comp study, which the city cannot afford to give the residents or the employees raises next year. So why wouldn't you save the money and have it done in-house? You're going to go and approve medical benefits for the council at management confidential levels. Well, we know most of you are getting either county or private insurance, so you're going to decline it and get a $3,000 stipend. That's $21,000 if you all have insurance outside of the city. So why wouldn't you decline it? Why should, at the time when the city is at the lowest income, having to watch our budgets, do you take advantage? The receipts are there. You guys are going out to lunches. I don't care if it's 5 cents or $5. When you're going to hit a $10 million deficit next year, every dime matters when we are facing bankruptcy again. And we have to look at that judge and say, you know what, sorry, had to go to China, needed to take Juan with me because I need a buddy, take a private consultant. What deals were made on behalf of the city that you guys know about and was done? This is the problem, is the complete lack of transparency in our city. It is a fraud, it is a fake. You go out and hire Eric as a new chief of police, you will face new litigation. Why? Because the process isn't done. The community is saying they are worried about discrimination. They are worried about the track record against migrant communities. Be proactive. Stop costing us millions and millions of dollars.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lynn Ware, followed by Kathy Mellon, followed by Joyce Seeger, followed by Amelia Lopez. Ms. Ware, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Lynn Ware. I come before you as a lifelong resident of San Bernardino and in my capacity as president of the Muscoobiabe Neighborhood Association. We protest the relocation of a welfare client services office into our neighborhood at an office site located at 27th Street and Little Mountain Drive. I'm supported tonight by other concerned neighbors. If you'd please stand. I first became aware of the actual intent of this office building project on July 19th, just 2.5 weeks ago. On July 23rd, I spoke with 2 city planners. I was assured by them that the office building was intended to be occupied by county human resources. That's hiring and firing, right? Which is an administrative function, right? Not client services. The next day, I received a phone call from the project planner to say that the city's understanding of this county office was in fact incorrect. She said Mr. Huntley, Community Development Director, had just learned that the county actually intended to relocate the TAD Client Social Services Office from its current location on Highland in Massachusetts, which is in a business district, to this project site at 27th and Little Mountain, which is within our neighborhood. Do you know that this proposed welfare office would be within 4/10 of a mile of Davidson Elementary School? That's right. This welfare office would be within the Davidson School District boundaries. It would also be within 1/10 of a mile of Little Mountain Preschool. Davidson's principal is very concerned and shared with me that they have already experienced transients entering the campus both during and after school hours. Last night, I spoke to the school board to inform them about this issue and to alert them of the potential security challenges and overall negative impact this proposed welfare office would have on Davidson students, parents, and staff. There's an overwhelming consensus of opinion by neighbors in both the Muscogee and Blair Park areas that this project is a very bad fit. We oppose it, and I'll add construction needs to stop immediately before we get any deeper into it and allow the proper planning process to proceed. Where in the planning process did this project become misrepresented as a human resources office? What went wrong along the way? That needs to be determined, and we have a right to know. We are asking this council to do the right thing, the responsible thing, and reassess this through the Planning Commission process, and I hope that happens tonight. If this welfare office project is allowed to go forward in our residential area, after the developer has gone on to his next project and our current county officials have left office, it will be neighbors, the neighborhoods, and Davidson School that will live in its wake.
Thank you, Ms. Ware.
Thank you for your
Our
time.
next speaker is Kathy Mellon, followed by Joyce Seeger, followed by Amelia Lopez, followed by Jim Penman. Welcome.
Good evening, Council. My name is Kathy Mellon. I live in the Blair Park Neighborhood Association on Miramonte Drive and 31st. I was pleased to see a construction project happening in my neighborhood in a vacant lot. A little bit of brief history. I moved to San Bernardino in 2002 and made my first solo home purchase. I chose my neighborhood. I chose my little neighborhood. Why? Because of its geographical proximity to great recreation, good home values, and the diverseness of my community. I carefully evaluated all the areas of the city and found a nice home in a great little neighborhood with conveniences close by, but not right in the neighborhood. A grocery store I could walk or ride my bike to, a library nearby, and quiet streets to walk the dogs and visit with neighbors. I was actually glad to see this project coming in. Partial is zoned commercial office, so I hope maybe some services that would benefit our city would come to that area. And maybe even bring some revenue. Instead, I found out through conversation, text, and public records requests, thank you, City Clerk, that the project would be a new location for the San Bernardino County TAD, Transitional Assistance Department. In real speak, that means a county welfare office. Well, the existing welfare office will be closed, and along with all the problems that accompany it, moving into our quiet neighborhood. I stopped shopping at the closest grocery store or frequenting any of the businesses that are near the existing welfare office. I was tired of seeing the street vendors clogging the sidewalk, leaving trash and debris, tired of being asked for money, tired of not feeling safe walking to and from my car. I stopped riding my bicycle because I couldn't secure it, so it would be stolen during running errands. I was shocked to find that this project had never gone before the Planning Commission and had been approved through a staff-level committee with no additional requirements that should be a part of a social service facility. The notification letter to neighbors within required proximity only mentioned it as a commercial office. I am asking this council to bring this back to review and ensure us that our quality of life outweighs politics and profit. We are willing to be a part of that process. I have reported almost daily work hour restriction violations, and the longer the City Council waits to take attention, the more the owner-developer has a vested interest in this project. The city should issue a temporary stop work order to give city and community time to resolve the discrepancies in the permit and application process.
Thank you. Thank you. Joyce Seeger, followed by Amelia Lopez, followed by Jim Penman and Damon Alexander. Ms. Seeger, welcome.
Thank you. I am president of Blair Park Neighborhood Association. We are north of the 210 freeway, and the Muscoviabe Neighborhood Association is south of the 210. About 1/3 of the Davidson Elementary School students live in the Blair Park Neighborhood Association boundaries. Our two neighborhood associations work closely together. Concerning the TAD building at 27th Street and Little Mountain Drive, I have heard from many in our neighborhood association, and many have said that they contacted our councilman, Henry Nickel. Several have mentioned all the empty buildings in and around downtown where this service for welfare recipients would make more sense. We are suspicious that this project was presented as one thing, but will actually be something else. We urge the council to look into the misrepresentation to get the permits for this project in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seeger. Ms. Seeger, I compliment you. You're 1:03 and you made your point. That's awesome. Thank you. Ms. Lopez, Amelia Lopez.
Yes,
welcome.
good evening, Mayor and Council. I am a longtime resident of the city, and I also serve the city as a planning commissioner. I live in the Muscoviabe area, and it is an urgent matter for us because if this was occurring in your home, we know you would not like it as well. It is from this perspective as a planning commissioner that I direct my comments to the council regarding the TAD welfare building at the 27th and Little Mountain Drive. As you already know, many residents are strongly opposed to this project, believing that this location too close to the Muscoviabe area is inappropriate. They are also very upset that they were denied their right to voice their concerns about this project when it bypassed the planning and the city council, for after all, we represent the people. This would have allowed the residents to voice their concerns and present their findings of fact. It appears that the process for approving this project was flawed from the beginning. The city's current general plan specifically calls for the city to actively enforce development standards, design guidelines, and policies to enhance the character of the neighborhoods so that the quality of life and the safety in these existing neighborhoods be preserved. The city's development code, Chapter 19, governing residential zone, calls for minimizing traffic congestion and avoiding the overloading of public services and utilities in the neighborhoods. The development code also states permitted development in the category of social service uses requires a conditional use permit, which if this had happened for this particular project, it would have brought it before the Planning Commission and would have allowed residents to make their case. Webster defines social services as any government or other agency that provides public services and other assistance to residents who need help, including assistance with housing, food, medical, etc. I mention this because the letters of notification for the public hearing that went out, that was issued by the city, does not mention a TAD welfare building. It says it is an office building. There is no mention of the TAD welfare office, and that is a big difference between an office building and a TAD welfare building. Residents believe this letter was misleading, very similar to a bait and switch. Even by the county's own admission, the TAD building in its current location across from Stater Brothers, the sign in front of the building says County of Public Social Services. The comment that the city made in an article that it was a typo is very strange. How do you get a typo from social services to office building? I don't know. But no matter what the error or whatever, whether it was intentional, as some may allege, or unintentional, the fact remains that these residents were denied the right to voice their concerns and to speak up. So they are asking for reconsideration on this matter.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez.
For after all, we're talking about our homes.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Our next speaker is Jim Penman, followed by Damon Alexander, followed by Sania and Manana Magana, I guess. Luis Suarez, Lizette Mendoza. Mr. Penman, welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm here tonight to offer a legal opinion regarding this TAD building. The city is in a very precarious situation. Litigation is likely, either from the developer if the project is stopped, or a writ of mandate from the residents. Either way, the city needs to preserve the status quo and freeze the situation. The way you freeze the situation, based on information that has just come before you tonight, that 5 of you voted arose since the agenda was posted, is that what Ms. Lopez just said, that it was advertised as a human relations building, and instead it's going to be a human services building. It does require a CUP. You protect the city from liability by issuing a stop work order. You also protect the developer because he doesn't continue to build and spend money. Now, the developer can acquire a vested interest in those permits if he continues to build and is allowed to do so. And he continues to spend money in reliance on lawfully issued building permits. But we don't know if they're lawfully issued or not based on the information that you've just heard. So you need to make a decision, and you have the right, as the mayor and city council in the new charter, you are responsible for litigation. You have to preserve the city's position. You have to stop and freeze everything in order that you can do a proper investigation and determine what happened. If you don't issue the stop work order, and the developer continues to build and acquires a vested right, and then later the residents get a writ of mandate and he's stopped, he's going to sue the city for letting him continue to build and spend money. It's a catch-22 situation for you. You have the legal right as the mayor and council to direct the city manager to have a stop work order issued until this can be sorted out, and that is the only way you can resolve that at this time. That is my opinion as an attorney. When I was city attorney, we had a similar situation develop. A city attorney investigator went out and issued a stop work order. We brought the matter to court. The court found that that developer had not followed the law, and he ended up paying big bucks. This could happen either way. It could go in favor of the city. It could go in favor of the developer. You need to protect the city, you need to protect the residents, and you need to protect the developer. And the only way you can do that is to direct the city manager to issue an immediate stop work order on that project. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Damon Alexander, followed by Sania and Ms. Magana, Luis Suarez, and Lizette Mendoza. Mr. Alexander, welcome.
That's it. There we go. Sorry about that. Welcome, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Damon Alexander. I'm a commissioner on the Public Safety Commission, and I'm going to pivot because it's so serious. And now it's never too early to think about turkeys. So with that in mind, I'm here to talk about the San Bernardino Turkey Trot. My wife founded this race 5 years ago, and I call it one of the points of light in the city of San Bernardino. And the point of light is that we are going on our 5th year with the San Bernardino Turkey Trot. And we should all be very proud of that because it's on Thanksgiving Day, and this year we're hoping to get over a shade of 1,000 people to come out and have a healthy initiative and get your wobble on before you get your gobble on. I'd like to thank a lot of people who have made the San Bernardino Turkey Trot a success. The mayor and the city council have come out. Most of you, except for you new ones. Well, I take that back. Sandra has volunteered for the Turkey Trot. Henry has ran in the Turkey Trot. But you new guys, you're welcome to come out. The last mayor gave finishing medals to the winners that come out, but he just left. I was going to put him on blast for coming out this year. Thank Chief Mejia and the county fire for coming out. Mitch over there, and they came out with the military last year. San Bernardino PD and their explorers, they have come out and volunteered for the Turkey Trot. It's a healthy initiative. Where did Chief McBride go? Is he still in here? He's ran in this thing every year since the beginning. So to my fellow, you ran in there too? My bad. I'm sorry. You're right. Since the stadium, we got a special medal waiting for you two guys. We got a special medal waiting for you two guys that have ran it for every year. We thank the San Manuel, the sponsors. I remember one time Gigi came out there and was just dressed up as a turkey. You guys can't believe it. It was fun. It was fun. Well, once again, come out. It's on Thanksgiving Day. It starts at 7 a.m. You get your run on, and then you go back and eat your turkey. I've been doing this every year. Like I said, my wife founded this race. We've been doing this every year. I hope to see all the city council out there this year. And that's all I got to say about that. Now you guys can go back to your serious business.
Okay, next speaker is Sania. Is it Sania?
Yes, yeah. Hello, council and mayor. Oh, mayor's not here, sorry. Council, hello. I briefly want to speak on the acting police chief of San Bernardino, McBride. I want to express my distaste that the council and the mayor would consider having an individual with a reputation of hate placed in a position of power. I fear it will inevitably lead to the misuse of police authority towards some of our community members. In light of the current events in El Paso, we must uphold the fact that immigrants are part of SB community. We're family. And our local administration should reflect that value in whomever they place in position to protect and serve this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Manya Magana, and after that, Luis Suarez, and then Lizette Mendoza.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mariana Magaña, and I work in the policy department with the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, also known as CHIRLA. We are here today to once again, as some of our colleagues already mentioned, voice our opposition to the potential appointment and confirmation of current interim Chief of Police Eric McBride as Chief of Police for the city of San Bernardino. Founded in 1986, CHIRLA is a California leader who serves the immigrant community through civic engagement, community education, organizing, the provision of legal immigration services, and advocacy at the forefront of the federal, state, and local policy, including here with our office in San Bernardino. As the City Council of San Bernardino prepares to confirm a new Chief of Police, we urge you to reconsider this appointment due to the anti-immigrant rhetoric during his tenure as council member in the city of Hemet. Then Councilmember McBride, as already been mentioned, introduced a resolution in support of SB 1070, the infamous Arizona state law that centered the debate of immigration. Though the resolution did not have any policy implications, it showed symbolic support for a law that further sought to criminalize and increase the racial profiling of the Latino community. We have seen what words have done in these past recent years with this current administration. Since the three major provisions of SB 1070 have been deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court of the United States. Furthermore, most recently, in 2017, the San Bernardino Police Department, as then Assistant Chief, was to be sworn in as El Monte Police Chief, but due to significant backlash from community members as a result of his previous anti-immigrant stance, McBride withdrew his acceptance to the offer. San Bernardino needs a police chief the community can trust and will not further divide our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Luis Suarez? Luis? Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Lizette Mendoza.
Yeah, good evening. This is Lizette again on behalf of the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice, also known as ICIJ. As you know, San Bernardino is a growing and diverse community that wants to celebrate and welcome the immigrant community with hospitality. And we showed that when 571 migrant folks from the Central America and Ecuador made it here to our Greyhound station just a few blocks forth. And the Inland Coalition for Immigrant Justice, along with CHIRLA, SB Generation Now, and many others throughout the city and through the Inland Empire received those families. And these were the incoming immigrants, along with those folks that are already here in the region. And with this said, as my colleagues have already said, we should not stand, and we will not stand by hate or racism, and we should not allow a leader that supports anti-immigrant policies to be in a position of power. And as you already know, that person in power is Acting Chief of Police, McBride. And the fact that he's a leader and was responsible for the passage of resolution supporting now the unconstitutional SB 1070, this is an insult to the community of San Bernardino. The fact that 4 council members on the city of San Bernardino, the council, would have been subjected to profiling if SB 1070 were implemented in Arizona or were implemented here. The fact that these 4 city council members, for the fact that they're people of color, they would have been profiled again if we had a similar resolution here or in the state of Arizona. including the mayor. The mayor would have also been profiled because of SB 1070 and other policies. So maybe some folks here don't agree that this is straight out racism, but when policies are promoted, supported in any format that leads or feeds racism, we are going to call that out, and we're going to stand by that and continue to fight back. Our communities have found out that McBride is a potential new chief of police for the city of San Bernardino. And the fact that he continues to support the anti-immigrant and anti-Latino violence that has become prevalent across the country. We have witnessed this in the white nationalism that continues to grow in our country and here alone in the city of San Bernardino. And again, we will not stand by this. We understand that you all are trying to do different things, that your leadership is growing, that it's maybe innovative in different ways to support and welcome our people of color in the city. But the fact that you have allowed him to be the acting chief is already an insult big enough that we're nodding to and that we're not applauding to. And so we hope that we can continue the conversation offline, as we've always said. And we thank you for your time today as we close out. And that finally, we don't appreciate the fact that the mayor continues to shift who gets to speak first and who doesn't get to speak at all.
Time is up. Thank you. Very good.
Mayor, can I ask you a quick question? I submitted a slip to Gigi well before 7. I don't think did it make it to you?
I have 2 slips from you, sir.
One was for public hearing and one for public comment.
Are you ready to speak?
Sure. I thought that the public speaking was over. No?
If you're ready to go,
I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to have you.
Ready to go.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You're recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff. My name is Dr. Siraj. I'm a cannabis applicant chasing that elusive microbusiness license. I think it's prudent to discuss cannabis license in light of the agenda item 6, which has been tabled, and additional facts that I want to share with you. 6 has been tabled because the applicant did not have a valid lease while they were moving through the various phases of the licensing process, which has been discussed earlier. If the allegation is true, it would be a massive embarrassment not only for the applicant, but also for the city, for the lack of proper vetting. Concealment is fraud. If this was disclosed during phase 4, would you have voted for their license? Think about that. This brings their second license into question. Concealment is fraud. Let's put cannabis in the context of fairness. Has it been fair? Virginia Marquez, who voted for the ordinance, said the licensing process has to be fair and equitable. Has the licensing process been fair and equitable, Mr. Sanchez? You're seeing in your seat. The answer is a resounding no. Every one of the council members agree that the licensing process was flawed. Mr. Shred, you've conceded that it wasn't right or perfect. Mr. Nickel, you've conceded and apologized for a messy process. Andrea Miller was fired partly because of cannabis. Jeff Bloom vanished into thin air while the city council was left holding the bag. At the end of the day, the city failed in its administrative and ministerial duties to be fair, objective, and above all, follow its own guidelines and procedures. Was any of the council members aware of a late applicant? This was part of the court discovery information that's been disclosed. Mr. Persico writes, I'll submit this to evidence. Even though your client missed a 4 p.m. deadline, the city will accept the application, but the application will be accompanied by a note clearly stating the application was filed after the deadline. This may be a factor that is considered by the city council. Was anyone aware of this during phase 4? It's been 167 days since 16 cannabis licenses were awarded, and only to date, 5 license holders have submitted their plans to the city for moving forward. This is an anemic 31%. What does it say about the city's evaluation process? What does it say about the licenses themselves? Maybe some are moving forward because 8 lawsuits against the city that could upend their entire licensing scheme. I think it is time to add cannabis back on the agenda. Waiting another 6 months, as Mr. Sanchez has suggested, which was part of a larger 1 year, is not a solution. Please direct Mr. Huntley to provide you a report on the current license holders and non-license holders' intent in moving forward. let's have an honest and robust discussion about additional licensing to qualified applicants.
Thank you, Mr. Majad. We're moving on.
The solution is
Thank
not
you,
in
sir.
the courts, but
Thank you for your comments.
it's here between us.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to our staff reports. At this time, I'll recognize our public safety update, and we're moving on. Mr. McBride, Acting Assistant Chief McBride, and Mr. Mejia, please join us at the podium for your update.
Mayor, you going to ignore me? I submitted a slip. So it just disappeared?
Mr. Ojeda, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So first of all, I want to thank you, everyone. So I don't know what happened with my slip. I submitted it. Anyway, I'm Luis Ojeda. I'm president and founder of We Are the Change. We've been doing cleanup for the past year. Right now we're doing SB Food Fest. Last Saturday was our fourth event that we've been doing. It's going great. I want to thank staff and the community as a whole for the support. One thing that I wanted to mention that today there's been several comments made that I think that's part of the problem with our country and our city, because everyone is ready to criticize and call people names. I mean, I'm the first one to admit that when I don't agree with something, I criticize with facts. Okay, tonight we have seen what had happened in our country with different shootings all over the country, and it's because one part of the country, one party, one race is accusing another one. And you know when this is going to stop? Never. Because personally, I know many people that have moved to northern Idaho, Montana, and why they're doing that? Because they feel that in certain states they're not welcome because of their skin color. And I think that if we really want to move forward, we need to stop that. Because at the end of the day, every race has done something wrong to another race throughout the years, throughout the centuries. And if we don't stop that, we're going to destroy our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ojeda. Mr. Ojeda, sorry for the confusion. There is two Luises here, one with a last name, one without. So please, just going forward, fill out the slip and we'll call your name. Our police safety update, police and fire. Thank you, gentlemen. And Miss Ledoux?
Yes, Chief Mejia and Chief McBride are here to present the public safety report.
Good evening, Mayor and Common Council. I'm glad to be here to report on the status of the police department and what has occurred over the last 6 months. Of course, you're aware that in the last couple months, there was a major shakeup at the police department. We instituted about 2 months ago community policing, which required a total restructure of the police department. With that, we established 5 district commands. Along with that, there was a realignment of 10 officers as district resource officers. This was a significant improvement over the 2 officers previously that were assigned to community-related problems out there. So it's 10 officers versus 2. And they specifically addressed the quality of life issues and other district-centric issues throughout the city. I think in the past, with only 2 officers, there was a lack of ability to go throughout the city and address those quality of life issues. And now with 5 districts and 2 officers assigned specifically to those districts, we're much better at addressing those issues across the city as a whole. And I think that the community is now seeing things happening where they live versus in just 1 or 2 other areas in the community. With that realignment of the police department, it required us to reallocate over 130 sergeants, corporals, and police officers among those 5 newly established community policing districts. Of course, it's important as we established those districts that we equitably distribute those officers across the city so that every district in the community is receiving a similar amount of response from the police department and resources. Along with the establishment of the community policing districts, we also created a violent crime and narcotics unit, which filled a void that we didn't have in the police department for a long time. And these teams are working hand in hand with the violence interruption program. As you're aware, that was an initiative that was started a couple years ago, and we're finally getting to the point to where we're actually going to go out there and do call-ins and do a lot of other things to work with that VIP program and our community members that are involved in that program. I think that's going to be a good step forward in helping to address violent crime in the community and draw down those numbers, and actually hopefully divert people away from being arrested for crimes and into programs where they can receive assistance so they don't go down that path in the future. Because I think at the heart of the issue, we think it's more important to reserve those resources for those who won't go along with the program. And if we can divert people to alternative programs where they can get assistance and get jobs and get retrained and stuff like that, that's better for the city as a whole. With the district commands, we saw a significant increase in enforcement to address quality of life issues with focused arrests and citations aimed at countering problems associated with the homeless population, transient vendors, code violations, and neighborhood blight. What the district commands have actually been able to do over the last couple of months is to address 700 specific CRMs, and that's quite a few. So those CRMs in the past would come in, and they're divided amongst just a very small amount of people, and quite frankly, we really didn't have the resource or the mechanism in place to address those in a timely manner. Now with the district command, they've actually been able to address over 700 in the last several months. Along with that, the district staff has participated in approximately 75 community meetings and other events, including Coffee with the Cop. Sorry. Participated with 75 community meetings along with Coffee with the Cop, neighborhood association meetings, faith-based group gatherings, business watch meetings, and service clubs, all with the express purpose to enhance our community relationships and improve our two-way communication with our community. What's also important to note is that when we strayed away from community policing, we lost a lot of our neighborhood associations. They didn't see that mechanism in the police department where we were working with them. And so while there were still some that stayed in place and they're still pretty active, the fact that they saw the district commands be reestablished caused them to reestablish ones that had been deactivated over the years. And also we've assisted in the formation of new neighborhood associations so that we can have that mechanism to reach out to folks in the districts who live there, and they can tell us what their community concerns are so we can address those in a timely manner. And just to have that communication back and forth between us and the community is just essential to solving some of those community-related problems. Along with that, I think that what's really important is to address the downtown district. With that, we've formed the first ever business watch group downtown, which is bringing business owners together to improve business conditions in the downtown core. As you all are aware, the downtown district has suffered over the years. If you could back it up a little bit. Yeah. One more. Has suffered, and we've seen a lack of businesses, and I think it's because of the business climate and just the climate downtown. And so we want to actually work with business owners to bring back some life to downtown. And with that, we've also done a lot of things to establish that. We've also made sure that each district staff has a line of communication to the public, whether it's they have phone numbers that directly go to the district staff or emails specifically that they can go to address our staff and bring them up to speed on what's going on in the district and so they can deal with those. We're also currently updating our policy and response protocols to homeless encampments in conjunction with this, and working in conjunction with the city attorney's office to do policy revisions. Specifically, there's been a lot of case law decisions on how we handle the property of people who are transients and how we store that. And we want to make sure that we're compliant with the law, and we do that in a way that safeguards the city against liability while still working to improve those areas and decamp people from areas where they shouldn't be living, such as city parks and stuff like that. Also, one of the big things that we've done in the last couple of months is that we've reached out and we've reestablished Chaplain Corps. And so this is a Chaplain Corps that's able to bring faith-based leaders into the police department. And then when we have issues out there in the community and we need a response where they might lend some assistance, we're able to call upon them and respond out across a wide variety of faiths in the community, pretty broad spectrum of folks to draw from for that. You can forward to the next slide. Specifically downtown, there has been, as you may be aware, there is a issue with human trafficking in the downtown core all the way up to Baseline. And as a result of reconstituting some of our proactive teams, we've been able to conduct several human trafficking programs, which resulted in 25 arrests for human trafficking and prostitution charges. But also, part of the specific enforcement we've done 2 major cleanups at Meadowbrook Park, following complaints received from the community regarding unlawful camping and related quality of life issues. And during these 2 major operations at Meadowbrook Park, we were able to make 33 misdemeanor arrests and 5 felony arrests. We cleaned up and removed over 45 camps in that park for those 2 operations, and actually there was gatherings of 25 areas where property had been dumped and became blighted and stuff like that. And I think cleaning up those parks is a big deal. If you can move to the next slide. You know, that's one of the things that people thought that when we went to district policing that we would do away with the quality of life. And these are just pictures of our officers that are still proactively out there. Each district every week across the city is receiving those resources to go out there and clean up blighted areas in the community. And so we've actually created a lot more cleanups throughout the entire community versus where they were focused on maybe a few areas in the past. And if I point out the picture that was on the right was an officer rescuing some wildlife that was living out there. I think it was a feral cat that was out there in the community living. But also, we haven't stuck to just Meadowbrook Park. We've also gone out there and cleaned up Tom Gould Park, Paris Hill, and Wildwood Parks. We've twice deployed our mounted enforcement team in the downtown area to address quality of life issues in the core downtown area. And it's surprising. You would think that folks out there that are doing bad things would see this big horse coming down the street. But surprisingly, they're able to sneak up on people doing bad things more than just somebody on a police car. But they actually go out there and they do a really, really good job. And I think everybody is excited to see the horses out there when they are out there. And we're going to see some more of those types of enforcement. Recently, it looks like another agency is deactivating their mounted enforcement team. And it was primarily comprised of reserve police officers. A lot of them are interested in joining our reserve corps to be a part of our mounted enforcement team. So you might see even more mounted enforcement. And it's actually a very, very good enforcement tool out there. And it's a big community relations thing. When people see the horses out there, they like to approach them. And it's, part of being out there and doing enforcement is also making sure that we're approachable to the community. And I think seeing officers on horseback creates a great environment for that. Also, it was brought to our attention, marijuana dispensaries are a major concern in the community. We're addressing that through some reformatting the way we're doing it. We want to make sure that we do it in a way that is civilly, doesn't create any civil liability for the city, and that enforcement that sticks. And one of the areas that I want to highlight was Marshall and E Street. There was a lot of community concern about a dispensary that was operating there. We have taken quite a bit of enforcement action. And as our last enforcement contact with the property owner, they are in the process of evicting the tenants. Of course, a lot of these times when we go out there and we contact the owners of the properties where marijuana dispensaries have been located, a lot of times the property itself is rented under false pretenses, and a lot of the owners don't actually know. They might be told that it's going to be operating as a discount store, then it turns out to be a marijuana dispensary after they move in. So, one of the first things that we do is contact those property owners and make them aware of what's going on. And if we can get voluntary compliance, that's probably the best way that we can get those people evicted, and that's can happen relatively quickly. It's not super quick to evict somebody that doesn't want to go, but it's a process, and it's that the property owners are willing to work with us on that. It was also brought to our attention of a net cafe at 415 West 5th Street. A lot of these little net cafes are operating actually as an online gambling location where people are using computers to actually gamble. And so that was brought to our attention. We went out there, we arrested 5 subjects, and we seized 34 computers that were being used for illegal online gambling. There was a specific area in the community where they were seeing a large number of car thefts and break-ins of vehicles. So we utilized a bait car, which is essentially a vehicle that is outfitted with a kill switch, and we can remotely operate it. And we placed it in an area with items that look like people might want to steal. And we look for people trying to find those people who are breaking into cars or stealing cars, and then we can use that as a mechanism to attract them and then hopefully get them in custody and avert that from happening in the future. So we are, with our added resources and our proactive teams that we've put into place with our district commands and reformatting the police department, that's a capability that we now have to do stuff like that on a regular basis. moving to the traffic unit, next slide, that you're on right now. During the last 6 months, the traffic unit has investigated 20 fatal traffic collisions. Now, an important thing about that is we do have a large number of fatal traffic collisions, and we do need to address that. And the way that we do address that is through traffic safety funds to the state of California. And during the first 6 months of this year, we've actually operated 59 special enforcement operations across the city to actually try to combat some of those problems with traffic that we have that are resulting in those traffic collisions and fatalities. As a result of those operations, we've actually issued 3,000 citations during the first 6 months of the year. These were focused on bicycle safety, pedestrian safety, DUI enforcement, seatbelt enforcement, and motorcycle safety and enforcement. And as you're probably aware, a lot of the traffic fatalities that we have are actually pedestrians in the roadway not observing the traffic laws. A lot of this is happening at night, and they're wearing dark clothing, so they're not highly visible. And so, you would think that primarily it's traffic dealing with vehicles, but a lot of it is also pedestrians that need to obey the law and stay within the boundaries of the crosswalk and cross when it actually says walk. And so a lot of those enforcement actions are actually focused on pedestrian traffic as well.
Chief McBride, what's that up over? I mean,
6 months, first 6 months of the year.
So we're over 3,000. What was it at previous year? Do you know?
I don't have the numbers for that citations. I do have an overall number for citations on another slide.
It'd be interesting to know if it grew versus last year.
Citations did grow, specifically to traffic. I don't have the number, but I'll have a slide in a couple slides down that will show those citations. So next slide, I want to talk about calls for service and actually response times, because that's always on the mind of everybody, is what are response times? Are they getting better? Are they improving? And for the first six months of the year, we actually saw a slight uptick in calls for service. Really not, in the scheme of things, 45,000 calls for service, nearly 455 is not a huge uptick. It's a very slight uptick. But nonetheless, it was 1%, a 1% increase in calls for service. But overall, our response times improved by 9.7 minutes. But then when you break it down to each priority, the only call level that we did see a slight slowing of the response time was in the priority E calls, and that's only 38 seconds. But then you go through priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Across the board, there's an improvement in response times. And it's to the point to where it's anywhere from 6 minutes to nearly almost 15 minutes improvement. So we are seeing an improvement on our response times. I think that really has a lot to do with, we place an emphasis on our supervisors and managers to make sure they get out there and supervise, make sure that the officers are getting out there, handling the calls as efficiently as they can, because we can improve response times by making sure that officers get back in service as quickly as possible. And don't hang out on the calls, for example, longer than they need to. And once they're available, they're able to respond to another call more quickly, and that gets the response times to come down. And so we have to credit, I think, our officers for going out there and dealing with those calls as quickly as they can, but also supervisors for making sure that they do that. Next slide. And here's where the arrests and citations come in. And so actually these aren't going to be traffic citations, these are going to be criminal citations. So what you see is overall we've seen an increase in overall arrests. While you might see the numbers of booked arrests down slightly by 1.5 to 1.9%, you see an overall pretty significant increase in the citations for felony misdemeanors across the board. So that's an increase of over 428 citations for the first 6 months of the year, or 6.9%. So that reflects officers going out there and writing more citations and taking care of those issues out there. So despite the fact that the increase in call load, they're still getting out there and doing and creating more work out there to get the stuff for the community. So the one thing we've done over the last year, specifically leading over to last year a little bit, is develop some more community partnerships out there. And with that, you may be aware that we developed an area with San Manuel. They have actually funding some police officers for a district area specifically to counter the effects of the increased traffic around San Manuel. As you guys all know, there's a lot of people that transit that area to go up there, so there's an increase in traffic. There are some issues associated with an increase in people in that area, so they fund 3 full-time officers along with some CSOs. And during the first 6 months of the year or thereabouts, They've actually made 82 arrests, initiated 270 traffic stops, issued 106 citations, handled 77 calls for service. So that's an enhancement because anything that's in that defined area that comes up, they can respond to it. So it's an enhancement above and beyond the normal complement of officers that we have assigned to that area in a much smaller area. So they've impounded 60 vehicles and actually engaged in 40 community contacts. With that, we also developed a partnership with Dignity Health. As you know, we have 2 of their hospitals in the community, both at St. Bernardine's and San Bernardino Community Hospital. And there are a lot of walk-in traffic. There's a lot of issues that are associated in the emergency room. So they actually are funding a full-time officer at Community Hospital, and then also a rotating officer on overtime that they fund at the St. Bernardine's. And that actually helps and assists us because if somebody walks in with an issue, maybe it's domestic violence, maybe it's a violent crime that's occurred, we don't have to take an officer out of the field to respond to the hospital and then be out of service for a significant amount of time. They're actually funding the officer that's staying in the emergency room to deal with that issue until it's completed. So it actually assists us greatly to helps us reduce our overall response to crimes and calls for service in the community as well. Next, I want to highlight and go to the UCR stats. And there was a reference to arson. I just want to make sure that the council understands that arson, while it is a Part 1 crime, and we do report it to the FBI, so if you were to go to the FBI website, you would see arson on there. However, the mechanism for that is that we as a police department take what we call a face sheet, or just a preliminary sheet, and then that's investigated by either the former city fire or currently the county fire. And so they follow up, do the investigation, make arrests, and follow up on that investigation. So we don't report that necessarily here as part of the police department because we're not responsible for the outcomes on those crimes. But anyway, I want to go over the other Part 1 crimes on here. And this is the first 6 months of the year, and we reported 21 homicides, which was on par for last year. But I want to note that as of today, we have 22 homicides, but this year, last year, there were 28. So to date, we're actually down 6 homicides from last year. Rape is down 6.9%. Robbery is down 2%. Aggravated assaults is up 14%. But it's important to note, I think, on that is that firearm violence on aggravated assaults are down, and assaults by other means for aggravated assault is up. So who knows where that is coming from, but we see far less firearm assaults this year than other types of aggravated assaults. Burglary is down 3% overall. Thefts, which are a wide variety of different thefts, but they're down overall 2%. Vehicle thefts are up slightly at 3%, but overall crime is trending an increase of about 0.5% from year to date. So it's about on par, but some of the crimes are down, which is overall, the numbers are looking pretty decent, I think, across the board for crime itself. And specifically homicides, we're down actually some reason we look at homicides as the benchmark number, and we're actually year to date as of August 6th, I think that's today, we're down 6 homicides from last year. And even though we're technically at 20, 2 of the homicides occurred in previous years. However, the coroner's office finally determined that it was the cause of death was a homicide. So even though it occurred previously, it's statted this year. So actually, physical number is 20. We stat 22. Personnel and training, as you can look, this is looking back over the last 10 years on staffing at the police department. And as you can see, while we've always been in the previous years prior to bankruptcy staffed hire, we never actually reached our fully complemented numbers of police officers, even though we were, and then most recently, even though we were authorized more police officers over the last several years, we actually have more officers on the street today than we have since 2012 or 2013. So that's, through the very aggressive efforts of our personnel training program. Our officers that are signed to that, our recruiters are out there trying their best to recruit people from across the spectrum of the community. And I think that you'll see that our recent recruits do reflect to the large extent the community. We've been very aggressive. We realize that that we're not going to get necessarily additional officers, so we're going to make sure that we have all the officers that we're authorized at the given moment. And one thing I would just want to point out, you might look at the numbers for budgeted for this year and wonder why there's two separate numbers, and 256 being one and then 254 being the other. And that's because as we get to the end of the year in December, we're actually going to phase out a captain's position as well as a sergeant's position, so the authorized strength will go down too. But we're going to actually, still have more officers on the streets than we've had in the last 7 years. So, and that even lends to us having, being more out there, proactive. We actually have about 28, I believe, today officers in training, whether that's in the academy or in the field training program. So as they finish, they'll be going out the street. And one of the programs that we want to start up when we get those officers through training and get that complement, it's very important to keep patrol staff at a certain level because it's important to be able to respond in a timely manner to calls for service. But one of the teams that we want to institute here, hopefully by the end of the year, is a human trafficking team, a full complement, which the city, in my 28 years that I've been here, has never had any more than 2 officers assigned to human trafficking. And that's a major concern, I think, out there for people, is that we don't do enough for the victims of human trafficking. And I think we need to actually assign an entire team, and that's one thing that we're going to do in the near future. So that concludes my report. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, Chief, I want to commend your department and thank you very much for the report. This is increasingly important for our community and the integrity of our business development as we seek those business development opportunities in the Renaissance for our community. We're grateful for the efforts that you and your team have made. This is the highlight, and the highlight is that we have more police officers on our city streets, and we're grateful. Chief Mejia, do you have a report?
Yeah, that's fair. But I want to thank you, Mayor and City Council, to allow me to present. This will be my first one doing so. And all of you that turned out today for the Fire Ops 101, we want to thank you. It gave County Fire an opportunity to showcase some of the assets that we have and the services that we provide to the communities that we serve. So it was our honor to have you out there. So thank you. This report's going to be from January 1 to June 30th. And what we want to cover is, next slide, is we're going to cover emergency incidents and calls for service, response times, some of our capital improvements, equipment replacement, our prevention and community risk reduction, and our special ops. Next slide. So one of the things that we want to just emphasize is that we're really moving to a database-driven department. So we want to look at when we look at placing stations or where we're responding to or how we staff up our response models, we really take the data that we have and make sure that we're using it properly and making sure that we're utilizing our equipment to the utmost. One of the things that we find is we've had a reduction in service from when county fire is in and city fire. We've seen 12 stations with city fire, and now we're down to 8 staff stations in the city. And we'll talk about how we've improved services since then. But some of the decision making is that response times is one of our top priorities in making sure that we could get to the calls for service as quickly as we can. We understand that time is important in making those critical decisions in life and death. And target hazards. Where do we recognize our target hazards to be? Where are most of our people? And where are the issues that we have and we could be faced with? As far as the population as well, the children and the elderly, they seem to be their biggest call for service. Next slide. Current response times. It's important in this response plan that we show that there's 2 times in here. There's a metro time if you look at the first ALS unit on scene, and that's regardless if it's an engine or a squad. It's anything with a paramedic on it that we can get there as quick as we can. So in the metro, the average is 5 minutes. We average 4 minutes and 58 seconds, but we want to not look at the average, because in an average response time, you have a high and a low. You look at the 50%. 50%'s higher, 50%'s lower. We don't think that that's a true reflection of our ability to provide the service. So we look at the 90 percentile. 90% of the time, this is the average that we get to these calls. And you got to remember that in that 7.5 minutes, it seems a little excessive, but there's a lot of calls for service in the city. So sometimes we have units that are tied up and it takes us a little longer, or a second unit has to come in. So it's important that, but we see that. So on the notes previous, if you did a comparison, and I've had this asked, how did it look with city fire versus county fire? And we use the Citygate report to pull this data prior to county fire taking over. And in the Citygate report, it shows that 9 minutes and 30 seconds was the 90 percentile for city fire, and it's 7.5 minutes for, or 7.5 48 seconds for county fire. So you ask, well, they had 12 stations. We're doing with 8. How are we able to increase services? Well, we do it with different options. We have with other county stations that are able to come in and supply services on some of those areas. But we also use boundary drop with Rialto, Colton, Redlands. And boundary drop is anywhere we have boundaries together, we pull the closest unit. It doesn't matter if it's a county fire unit or if it's a Redlands unit. It's about getting the closest unit there. And so we're able to share resources and bring down those response times to all those areas. So that really helps out all the regional approach to county. So if you look at some of these, first engine on scene, it's similar to the first ALS unit. We only have 1 squad. So most of our units are Type 1 engines, the pumpers that you see, or trucks, or the 1 squad. So it just gives you a good idea of what our target is and where we use as our benchmark, that 90 percentile instead of the average.
Chief,
Next, yeah.
where is that squad located? What station?
226 on Del Rosa.
226 on Del Rosa.
Yeah.
And historically, Station 6 is our highest calls for service.
Yes, because it's
Among
farther
others.
out. And we're looking for opportunities as we build out our response plan and making our future plans, is we need to put 2 more squads in the city. We recognize that. 1, it takes the wear and tear off your Type 1 engines, and 2, it gives us more flexibility than running just those medical aids and leaving our Type 1s available for the fire responses. So as we move forward, those are our goals. Next slide. Incidents. If you take a look, this is only 6 months, but it just gives you an idea of the types of calls we're running and how many. And one of the things I just want you to pay attention to is vegetation fires. It's only 6 months, but we're averaging roughly about a little over 1 vegetation fire a day. Now, this is the winter months, but we get into the summer months, and you'll see it in another slide. Structure fire is the same thing. We're averaging a little over 1, but when we talk about response times, last year we ran roughly, we're on pace to run about 54,000 responses, but you look at the number of total incidents, it's only 16,000. So the difference is, in a structure fire, we have 7 pieces of equipment going to that 1 structure fire. So that generates 7 responses. So when you look at some of these incident types, even though the number is 16,000 roughly, it still generates a lot more responses. And those are units that are on the road responding to these calls. Medical aids are still the bulk of what we do. We understand that, and that's why we provide the paramedic service, and time is the essence in getting there and taking care of these issues. Next slide. CIP expenditures. So these are our capital improvement projects that we are doing, and here's some of the criteria or our benchmarks that we want to hit. We want to make sure that we secure all of our stations or our equipment. We catch up on our deferred maintenance, things that were just put off because of the bankruptcy and we just didn't have an opportunity to catch up on. So we're working on those. Any trip or concrete issues that we have, electrical or plumbing. And when you look at the safety equipment, the extractors and the washing machines, those of you that participated today, you see how quickly you get dirty. And one of the things that we found was the number 1 issue with cancer for firemen in the fire service today is those carcinogens and how quickly we can get those things off of us. So we used to be that we only had 1 set of turnouts. So you showed up to work and you went on a call, and let's say you worked a fire first thing in the morning, you wore those turnouts the rest of that day if you had other additional calls. Now we have the ability to have 2 sets. We could take that first set, quickly get them laundered, have a second set, and we're able to rotate our equipment and be able to get our people back into service and protect them as best we can. So an extractor is really important because it pulls those contaminants away from it instead of just cycling it through in a regular washing machine. Generators as well. One of the things that we noticed, we didn't have generators at all of our fire stations. So part of our pre-planning and making sure for disaster preparedness that we made sure all of our fire stations are getting generators. And I think we have 2 more stations that we have to put generators in, and then we'll meet that goal. Next slide. So here's some of the projects that we have in the works and we're going to be completing here in the next 6 months or starting in this next 6 months. And we have secured all of our fire stations, which was a big come up for us, making sure that we have gates and fences all the way around them. And it's just the day and age we live in. We've replaced a lot of concrete and asphalt at 221 and 224s. just huge projects, but it's part of, getting the 50-year life out of the fire stations that we need as part of that preventative maintenance. It's a big cost, but it's something that has to get done. We re-roofed 221s. That was a big project. That was over, that was a $100,000 re-roofing project for us. But again, it's part of that thing of just making sure that we're maintaining the stations and we're getting the life out of them that we need. And replacing, and bathrooms seem to be a big issue. It wasn't that long ago that we didn't have that many females in the fire service. Now we're getting more and more. I think we have 8 females in the fire service today. And so we have to make sure that now we have the accommodations for those. And so we're having to go back and relook at a lot of our fire stations. We talked about generators, extractors. With the extractors, we're out getting it looks like we're going to get a grant for those. And when you look at county-wide, we've got 40 stations that we have to put extractors in. So that's a really big improvement for our people and helping protect them. We also have concrete and asphalt projects at 222. That's a big project and undertaking for us. Nothing's cheap, so that's going to be huge for them. And our projected cost in just covering the things that we listed here is over $2 million. Next slide. This is just a picture of a Type 1 engine. This is the typical Type 1 that you see rolling around here. So on the next slide, when we talk about vehicle replacement, it takes us about a year by the time we put a purchase order in to get a vehicle built, sent to us, and then us to do our special outfitting. We have to put the lights on and do the things and outfit it, put our extrication tools on and mount the things that we need to mount. It takes about a year. And so when you look at our vehicle replacement program, this year we are receiving and putting into service here the next few months 2 Type 1 engines, we showed you a picture of, and a truck. Just those alone are roughly $2.4 million. This year we're going to cut purchase orders for 2 additional Type 1s, and hopefully we'll get the our second truck ordered as well. We also had a brush engine that got allocated to the city that was going to another part of the county, but due to mutual aid agreements that we have, that where we go out and assist other fire departments on large wildland fires, we opted to put a brand new one here because that's a pretty active station for assisting. So the city also saw another Type 3 go in there.
Chief, the truck and the Type 1 engines are going to be used in service in our city?
Correct.
These new apparatus?
New apparatus.
Very good. Thank
so
you.
In the next 2 years, we're going to see 4 Type 1s, possibly 2 Type, at least 1 truck, maybe another one, and a brush engine in the city. Next slide. Office of Emergency, or the Fire Marshal. It's a standalone department. And the reason why we put this in there is the Fire Marshal it's its own entity. They do the investigations. They are able to do the regulatory functions and inspections for us. And really why we want to showcase that is they're 100 personnel strong. And what that does is it alleviates our firefighters from having to do that. They don't have to go out and do these inspections and do this portion. And they could focus on responding on calls, and yet we're still able to take care of those functions and handle that. And then also out of there is the hazardous materials team. Now, we do the initial response on hazardous materials and make an identification, but they do the cleanup, follow-up, and if there's any kind of citations or anything like that, the Fire Marshal handles that for us. The fire prevention, just to give you some stats, this was for a year, so they offered this up, and we didn't have a percentage of how many that they did, because what they told me was, hey, we're just getting started. We're starting to identify those areas where we got to do inspections, because some of those things fell by the wayside, and they're just now starting to do an aggressive plan to do some prevention. So plan submittal, they did 640. Construction inspections, 936. State mandated inspections. And state mandated inspections can be anything from your schools. That was one of the issues they had when we first came in as county fire, was the schools weren't getting inspected. So one of the things they stepped in and started inspecting the schools in those areas, and then identifying all the other state mandated inspections that needed to be done. And they've completed 948 of those. And then annual inspections or any of those businesses where we have to go in and do an inspection. Next slide. and we'll talk about what they're really doing. So when we talk about state-mandated inspections, we talked about schools being one of them, but also triplex apartments. Anywhere where there's the state says, hey, these have to be done on an annual basis, that's what they do. So again, that frees up engine companies. They're not going out and doing them. These are people that are specifically trained to go and look for those hazards, and then making sure that they're writing the citations and doing the follow-up to make sure that there's some prevention there. Also, any hood and duct systems, they're part of the annual inspections. And so what that really does is that in these establishments where you have cooking going on, you could have had a hood and duct system go off and there was nobody really watching to make sure it got recharged or put back into service, and that's what they do. So anytime we have an incident where one of those has gone off, we contact our prevention officers, and that's their job. They follow up and make sure it's recharged and the cleanup is done and it's put back into service. City business licensing also, they require annual inspections, and they're making sure that those things are getting done when a new license is issued, that they're getting out there and inspecting the buildings and making sure that they're up to code prior to starting. And then working with code enforcement on any hazard and dangerous structure abatement. That's where we have a structure fire, and let's say it's a partial burn on a residence or a building, but yet it's a nuisance or it's a danger to just leave it the way it is and board it up. They come in and they start with the abatement process and assist county fire in making sure we get those things tore down through code enforcement. Next slide. Investigations. Also, the fire marshal does investigations, and any fire that's suspicious in nature that was not obvious to us, we call out for a prevention officer that's trained just in that, and they come out, and their job is to determine cause and origin. And that's what they do. Again, it frees up our firemen. They don't have to wear multiple hats, and they can do that. I apologize, we don't have an arson stat in there, and I could get that for you and make sure that we include that in the future. But they also follow up any arsons, and they do all the investigative work. If there's a arrest to be made and prosecution, they follow that thing through. Special ops. So our special ops, and really in this is, it's a multitude of things. You saw our helicopter today flying around. This is County Fire on it. It's our wildland hand crews that are out there. It's also our firefighter paramedics that are partnering up with law enforcement to do SWAT with them. It's also any of those are ARF that provides the coverage out at the airport. That's all under our special ops. But one of the things we wanted to showcase in the special ops was the wildland hand crews. So if you look at, let's look at incident support, 63 hours. That's 63 hours that firefighters aren't out there mopping up these wildland fires, and they're back on fire engines running the other calls. And these are people that in wildland, that's what they do. They go out there and they scratch a line around the thing, they put it out, and that's their whole function. Project work. We do a lot of project work, and one of the things that we wanted to talk about was Little Mountain. We tried to do a control burn on Little Mountain like we've done in the past to knock down some of that annual grass so that we didn't have fast-moving fires through there. Unfortunately, this year AQMD wouldn't allow us to burn. But what we did do is we went in there and did all the prep work. So we had the trails put in and control lines put in. So when we had the fire this week out at Little Mountain, those control lines helped. And we were successful in maintaining and not having any structure damage and being able to go up there. And then we were able to take advantage of the opportunity to make sure that whatever areas that we had to clean up, we did. And that's part of those hand crews. There's 18 people on a hand crew. We had 2 hand crews up there, 36 people up there with a sole function of just fighting wildland fires. One of the things too that we, just in this week alone, our hand crews have been out 3 times, once on Little Mountain, Paris Hill, and on the west end, just on wildland fires and coming out and letting those fire crews get back into service and taking care of those. So that's one of the real big come-ups that we see with County Fire. The last slide, 4th of July. We just kind of wanted to talk about 4th of July and what it looked like for County Fire. So it's just a 24-hour snapshot, and we talked about we average a little more than 1 vegetation fire a day. We had 16 that day, just in the city. We just looked at the city stations. Structure fires, we averaged a little more than one. We had 5. Investigations or alarms, this is where it could have been, well, they saw smoke. It didn't quite constitute putting out a structure response because they didn't see flames, but they saw smoke in the area where they thought there was a fire. And public services, that's another one where people are concerned that possibly something, somebody could be using potentially fireworks that were, not mishandling fireworks, and they didn't deem a fire yet where PD went out and we would go out and take a look. So you could just see and get an idea of what our responses look just in the city there and how much of an increase we saw just in those areas. Part of the...
Excuse me, Chief. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. The numbers that you're pointing to on 4th of July, are these confirmed that they were fireworks related, or just
no?
Not sure
So
yet?
they're not all fireworks related, but just to give you an idea, we didn't have a ability to pull out if they're just fire related. We don't have a fireworks related box that we could check off. We could pull that data down.
Okay.
Our county task force is made up through our OFM. We talked about how they're a standalone area and they do investigations, but they also are proactive in going out and trying to stop fireworks from coming into the county. So they set up checkpoints at the entry points coming in from Nevada, and they were able to seize 30 tons of fireworks. And this is a joint task force. It's just not county fire. It's other agencies that join in with county fire, and they go out there and they stop vehicles coming through and they check them. And so they were successful in stopping 30 or seizing 30 tons of fireworks coming in and had more than $90,000 in fines. And in those fines, they also wrote 73 citations, and I think a question came up once before is, what's a citation look like? How much is a citation? And it's $1,250 for first offense, and then it goes up from there. The county. No. I'll tell them. So that's just a quick snapshot of what 4th of July looked like.
Very good. Well, we thank you, Chief Mejia. Are there any questions? Council members? Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chief Mejia. We had a great time today, even though I didn't participate in all the fire stuff. A little too hot for me, but we had a great time. I learned a lot today. And also, Chief McBride, I just want to thank you. You know, I've been talking about looking for local talent to put in our police force, and also we want to look for the fire, too. We had our first recruitment at the America's Job Center with the County of San Bernardino, I believe, last month, the end of last month. And we're looking forward to having that quarterly where we're looking for our local talent to become police officers. We also discussed having a community committee to reach out and attract people of color, specifically African Americans, and I'm looking forward to putting that group together so that way we can start talking about this issue that's been ongoing, not just in the police department, but the fire department also. So I'm excited about it, and let's keep going and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Very good. Any other council members? Councilman Charette?
Yeah, thank you. I have a couple of questions for Chief of Police, or for Acting Chief. The numbers that you're talking about don't include, since we've started the new program, the COP, right?
The crime numbers were the first 6 months of the year. Some of the numbers were reflective of efforts by the community policing districts, specifically on the cleanups and stuff like that.
Because what I'm interested in looking at is kind of, I'd like a comparison of calls for, speed of calls for service, or the numbers based on before we started with the COP and now, which we started, May 1st?
No, we actually started, it was fully implemented in the middle of June.
Middle of June. So we've had almost 2 months now of that, and I'd like to see those numbers and how they might compare to a similar time. We all know that also calls for service are higher in the summer months, and we don't see that in July, and of course August. We're in August now, and we don't see it from last year, the comparison from, say, July and August of last year, just up January through June. And I think it's critical that we look at that and know that.
If I could comment on
sure,
that.
I'd like to.
Of course, going forward, when we do the next report, that'll include the summer months, so you'll get a picture, snapshot of what it is at next point in time versus last year. But even the slight increase in calls for service could be reflective of the fact that we have additional officers out there that are free from radio calls and are being proactive. So that increase, because we don't count those as just, those aren't calls necessarily from people calling, that's overall incidents for us going out there and being proactive as well and creating incidents. So that uptick in calls for service could be just as a result of us being out there being more proactive as well.
Okay, well, I'm talking about speed, right? Not the number of calls for service, but how quickly we respond. And I'd like to see that, I think, sooner rather than later. I don't think I want to wait. Personally, I'd like to see it sooner since we've implemented a new program. And I'd like to see maybe the first 3 months, which would be June, July, and August, and have that reported in maybe the last meeting of August and compare those times then. I'm also interested to know how many officers do we currently have on patrol, P1s, I guess is what they're really called, right? P1s that really go out 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They go out, the day crew, the day shift, the night shift. How many shifts are there? 3?
There's
the overlap.
4 shifts.
There's 4 shifts.
And 3 on the weekends.
3 on weekends. So in a 24-hour period, there's.
And the reason for that is during the week, Monday through Thursday, they work a 410 shift.
Okay.
And then on the weekends, Friday through Sunday, and every other Thursday, it's a 312. So it's the same number of officers, but different. It's structured.
For example, today, how many officers do we have on the street today and tonight? Do we know?
That fluctuates daily based on people calling off sick, taking vacation, holiday time. But on average, each shift is on average about 10 to 12.
10 per shift, 10 to 12 per shift. That means so that during the day there's 10 or 12 out there patrolling 62 square miles.
Yes, and they overlap. But there's actually staff with more officers than that, but you have to.
Well, I'm interested, and of course, we've talked about this, and I've made it pretty clear that I'm looking at the P1s, the ones in the black and whites, the ones that are really first on the scene when they're dispatched. I know management does go out. I get that. Sergeants and lieutenants and everybody can make a call and can be on a call, and we need that supervision out there, of course. But I'm talking about the guy that is immediately dispatched for something, and that's what I'm interested in seeing. Very quick response times.
Why don't we do this? Very good questions from Mr. Charette. Let's provide those in narrative format and supplemental through Terry. If Terry, you can accommodate Mr. Charette's questions. Very good.
Okay. Well, I've got more as well, and I've got
we just started.
I understand. I get it. But I've got some more, and I'll go through Terry with that. But I do have some more concerns and some thoughts and things that I'd like to get answers on, and I'll deal with Terry on that.
Very good.
We can get back to it.
All right. Other council members? If not, Councilmember Barra.
Just a good question, maybe directed to our city manager or acting chief. A lot of constituents are out there asking, why are police officers doing the cleanups? Is there like a plan to phase out our police officers since we don't officially have the quality of life team anymore? I mean, I appreciate the cleanups, and I'm pretty sure our constituents do too, but they're wondering why can't we just have our officers out in the streets patrolling, taking care of the crime instead of doing the cleanups? We can probably hire somebody for Public Works to do that.
The officers on occasion can assist with the cleanups, but more specifically, they're there for the safety concerns of the employees that are out there actually doing the cleanup. As you may be aware, that there are a lot of people out there that are living in that transient lifestyle that sometimes can be very aggressive or can potentially assault the employees, and they're there more for the safety of the employees that are conducting the cleanup than they are cleaning up.
Okay, and our officers are fully aware? Because I know I've seen pictures of them picking up trash bags.
I will tell you that if they're going to be there to make sure for the safety of those employees, sometimes they feel that they'll help out and do that too, but that's not specifically why they're there. But they will lend a hand and help out as well, because we don't want them just to stand around. If they feel obligated, they'll do it, because they're just about delivering that service to the community.
And one more question, if I may. Are we also collaborating with the county? I believe they have the HOPE team out there, so when you guys go to these homeless encampments, maybe bring somebody from the HOPE team and reach out and make contacts with the homeless that are out in the area as well.
Our officers are trained and do everything that the HOPE team can do. It's, of course, one of the important things for them to do is not just to clean up these camps, but to make sure that they refer those people who are living that lifestyle, refer them to services, make sure that they're aware of where there are beds available at night. So that's important. We want to get folks off the street and back in being productive citizens, and helping refer them to services that are available to them is an important component of that. And our officers are out there doing that as part of that, and they can do everything that the HOPE team can do with respect to that.
Okay, very good.
Follow up on that one, sorry.
Sure.
My concern is I reported a homeless encampment around 14th and F Street. It's been there for over a year. I went with We Are the Change to clean it up. I was reporting potholes. We had an individual in there that was a veteran, homeless veteran. And when our council member then, Virginia, spoke to that person about resources, he refused services. And he's still out there. I reported again, and he's still out there, and I don't see that improving. That's why I was suggesting the HOPE team coming in and helping.
I'll say that the studies have suggested that it takes anywhere from 40, 50, 60 individual contacts with an individual who's living as a transient to get them to change their lifestyle. And some may never do that. And we can't force, it's not against the law just to be living on the streets. They have to violate, crime laws and stuff like that. We make that effort, we make those contacts, and we hope to get those folks off the street. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of mechanisms to force them to do that. All we can do is refer them.
Councilman Figueroa.
Chief Mejia, first of all, I have a renewed appreciation for the work that the firefighters do, especially after today's Fire Ops 101 training that we were exposed to. It was always a bit of a concern, particularly for the residents of the Valley College area, when there was the closure of the Mill Street Arrowhead Fire Station, and much more now, since the proposed closure of the Mount Vernon Bridge will be coming up pretty soon. And many of the services that they've received do come from the station that is north of the train station. And so that would greatly affect their service as well. So I'm hoping that that would also be taken into consideration as well. And I heard you mention that there are lots of calls in the city, and so then I would say that maybe we do need some more stations. And I think I did hear you say that we are looking at possibly 2 more. Did I hear that correctly? 2 more stations, or what did I hear you say?
I was referencing how many stations that the city had operated compared to what County Fire is operating.
Okay.
There is some consideration of relocating a couple of the stations, just because of the age of the stations and the locations. With the closing at Station 225, the one by Cal State, when we had to relocate out of there, we moved that crew down to 221, which is down on 3rd Street, and that was based on the data that we saw that was the heaviest concentration of call load. So as we start to relook at where those stations are better allocated, we're starting to look at that data now, and that's for a longer conversation to have with the city and where those stations are better placed to make sure that we meet the call load. But as far as the stations 229, we know it's poorly placed. It's right on the border of Rialto. It puts us in a tough position. It is on our radar and making sure that we relocate that. It's, again, just finding the funding and the property and trying to relocate that. But it is on our radar. Yes.
Please deliver the message that it was a concern then, and it's still a concern today. For
and
many
it
of those
is a
residents
concern of ours.
in that area.
We've been looking at that and trying to figure out what our best options are.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Figueroa, or Nickel.
Yeah, just real quick, I had a question from a constituent as to checkpoints and what kind of program we have for that, and how extensive that program can be in terms of maybe checking for warrants and other possible issues. I know we've got, other concerns in the city, but how many checkpoints do we do? Do we have a regular program for that? What can you report back on that?
That's grant funded through the traffic safety grant that we received through the state of California. As to date, we've done, I think it was 59 various programs associated with that grant, whether it be DUI checkpoints, seatbelt checkpoints, distracted driving, you name it, and we go out there and do those. We have to actually put out public notice of where those static checkpoints are going to be to alert the public to that. It's a thing that we have to do by law. And don't worry, people still come through and when they're drunk. They don't pay too much attention to that. And then, of course, we put that out there. And so we have to, as a grant, do all of those, and we are very, very active in doing those checkpoints throughout the year. So I imagine if that's our pace this year at 59, we'll probably look at about 100 or more various checkpoints throughout the year, whether it's pedestrians who are going against the red light, whether it's DUI checkpoints, whether it's distracted driving, seatbelt and stuff, and that's all going back to public safety and preventing those traffic collisions and stuff like that. We do quite a bit of them.
Very good. Well, we thank you. Thank you for your update. We appreciate our police and fire, and we thank you. Since being elected as mayor, public safety has been one of my cornerstone priorities, and through the establishment of 5 district command zones, we've seen a more community-focused approach to policing to our community. Our police force has been better equipped to address the quality of life issues within each of our neighborhoods that covers nearly 65 square miles. And for the first time since 2012, our police department is fully staffed. I'm grateful for your participation tonight, and we thank you. Moving on to our staff report. Public hearings. And we'll turn it over to Ms. Ledoux, and I think you have some announcements.
We're still on staff reports, Mayor. Number 3.
My apologies. Okay, very good. Staff report, item number 3.
Mayor Aaron Zavala from the City Manager's Office is going to give you a report on the Southern California Gas Company's request to adopt a balanced energy resolution.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff, and public. Today before you, I have a staff report with the subject matter to consider the request from the Southern California Gas Company to adopt a balanced energy resolution. Staff recommends to consider and provide staff direction on the request from SoCalGas to adopt a balanced energy resolution number 2019-261 in support of balanced energy solutions and local choice, or a revised resolution number 2019-262 with more neutral elements from Southern California Edison. The options available to be taken include to either adopt SoCalGas resolution, to adopt the Southern California Edison resolution, or to take no action. On September 10th, 2018, Governor Brown signed Senate Bill 100, referred to as the Clean Energy Bill, into law. This bill requires California to transition to a fully renewable energy grid devoid of fossil fuels by 2045. Additionally, the bill required that utility providers generate 60% of their power from renewable sources by 2030. In late 2019, the Public Affairs Manager for SoCalGas reached out to the Mayor's office with a request to support a balanced energy resolution, seen in Attachment 1, with the intent to allow for some relaxation and adjustment of California's transition to a fully renewable energy grid devoid of fossil fuels by 2045. This matter was referred to the Legislative Review Committee. On July 9th, 2019, the LRC met and discussed items including the SoCalGas Balanced Energy Resolution. The present committee members, Mayor Pro Tem Richard and Councilmember Figueroa, received an email of opposition from Southern California Edison, who was concerned that the passage of such a resolution would slow the growth and deployment of clean energy technology in the city of San Bernardino. The LRC moved to bring this matter back to the Mayor and Council for discussion and review, considering and providing direction on the request from SoCalGas. Since the LRC meeting on July 9th, 2019, staff has received formal letters of support from SoCalGas, seen in Attachment 3, and opposition from Southern California Edison, seen in Attachment 4. While Southern California Edison is requested that the city not to take a stance, they have submitted an alternate resolution presented with more neutral elements. Thank you for your time. I can answer any questions you might have.
Very good. And we appreciate our Southern California representative. Is there a member of Edison here tonight? None from Edison. Okay, so the options before us, Aaron, are option 1, 2, or 3, and that's take no action.
Yes, that's correct.
And does staff have a recommendation?
We do not.
Very good. Council members, this is open for our deliberation. Councilman Charette.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we go with the resolution with item 2, and I'm interested in representing our community. Gas is, as far as I'm concerned, clean burning. It's cheaper. As was stated by the rep from the gas company, I'm not against electrifying the state and doing as much as we can with renewables and what have you, but it's a fairly expensive proposition.
Mr. Charette, I think you mean option 1.
Well, no,
because
there's
option 1 is the gas,
but
option 2 is
also,
Edison.
That says keep local control. I'm sorry.
So it's option 1.
The one that we approve the resolution and maintain local control.
Option 1.
So that's okay. I misread it then.
All right.
I thought it was
we have option 1.
And I don't know that I need to make much more of a case than that, but I think it's best for our community.
Okay, very good. I hear a motion by Councilman Charette for adoption of number 1, and the second by Councilman Mulvihill. If there's no more discussion, we'll move the item for a vote. Members would cast their vote, please.
Except doing it orally, I'm having issues seeing on my screen. So, Mr. Sanchez?
No.
Ms. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
For option 1, yes.
Okay. Mr. Nickel?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
And Mr. Mulvihill? The item passes 6-1 with Mr. Sanchez.
Very good. Thank you. Item number 4, moving on to public hearings. Ms. City Manager, you have an announcement on some issues that you're pulling?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think we have an emergency item we need to take up at this time.
On staff reports?
Yes.
Okay, very
Let's
good.
move to the end of the staff report.
Oh, my apologies. You're right. Okay, so we'll hear the item before that was on emergency ordinance for the discussion on TAD building. Mr. Nickel, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just want to provide a record so that we can move forward on this. I just wanted to make it clear that on August 4th, I received documents pursuant to a public records request by a constituent providing the applicant documents related to this project that specify a human resources facility to be constructed. Those documents included relevant traffic studies and other documents related to the applicant's project. I also want to clarify that the applicant is not the county, but a private developer going by an LLC, 27th Street TAD LLC. So just to be clear, the applicant is not a public agency. It is a private developer. Also on August 2nd, I received copies of public notice provided related to this project. Such public notice stated that the project was for the operation of a, quote, an office building. On August, yesterday, I received documents that included the original RFP that was released by the county on April 18, 2017 for the lease for the Human Services Transitional Assistance Department. This document on page 2 states the following. HSTAD is a County of San Bernardino agency that provides a wide array of federal and state mandated social service and income assistance programs. Furthermore, the county is accepting proposals for the lease of approximately 37,700 plus minus square feet of commercial office space. And it is therefore my opinion and the opinion of many residents in the area that this constitutes a social services facility in the context of our development code. I will submit this RFP that was provided to me yesterday, the county RFP related to this project for staff consideration. And at this time, I would respectfully put forward a motion to direct our city manager to issue immediately a stop work order on this project and take appropriate corrective action given the information provided tonight. I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion with a second, and the matter is before the council to deliberate and discuss. Open to council members. Councilman Charette.
Yeah, I'm very concerned about this. It went through a process, albeit maybe not the way it could have. I smell blood in the water. I see litigation coming forward. It was approved by our DERC, if I'm not mistaken, correct? I don't know why it didn't go to planning. I don't know why it didn't come before us, but we've gone through a process. We've got developers and people that have done it. I certainly empathize and understand the concerns of the community. I think I know exactly the location. I mean, I grew up in that area, so I do know it, and it's freeway close, and I think we're really setting ourselves up for some real trouble if we stop this. Terry, I'd like to know more about what you said, that you're already working on it. You've already started talking to the developer or the parties or whoever. And certainly I take Mr. Penman's comments seriously as well, that if we stop, we stop them from spending any more money, but then they sue us because we've stopped them because we've already approved them. It's a real conundrum, if you ask me, and I think we're really setting ourselves up if we vote to stop this right away. So I'd like to hear your comments on it, or from our housing, our community development director.
Councilmember Charette, I don't know that we're ready to talk about it tonight. Mike Huntley, our community development director, is still gathering the documentation, and he's going to go over it with our legal department. So we're certainly not ready to talk about it this evening.
Yeah, I get that, and I appreciate that. I would caution that we just throw a stop order out there tomorrow, and I won't be supporting it.
Any other council members? Councilmember Barra.
To my colleagues, this is actually in the second ward. I did not become aware of it until January when I met with the owner. The original text that I received from him after being sworn in December said it was a county building, never emphasized more details into it. Until I met with him personally, I had several constituents that were able to make it out with me, and when we asked them, he said it was transferring of the TAD building from Massachusetts to 27th, and by then he told me it had already been approved. However, after all the constituents raised concerns because of the fences going up, I was honest with them and I told them who the property owner was and what the proposed project was, and they all share the same sentiment, that they were misled as far as the notices they received back in October 2018. I think it is fair that we ask that property owner to apply for a conditional use permit and allow for a public hearing, allowing the residents who are going to be greatly affected by what's going to happen with that project being put up in their neighborhood. Just a little bit of history. People may not know this same property owner, and I want to put this on the record. He did oppose a social services right across the street from him, his office building in Rialto, because of property values. But then he's doing this to our city, right across from, this is the only last good neighborhood I have in the second ward. And I hear their concerns. This was highly misled. I don't know how it goes from human services building to a human resources admin building. There had to be something provided to our city staff. Maybe it was not provided. I do appreciate one of the constituents who has been actively asking for public records requests, which we're still waiting on. And I'm happy to be at the Muscopiabi Blair Park Neighborhood Association because the traffic is going to change drastically in that neighborhood. As is, there is a preschool across the street where the apartments are located, and maybe 2-3 blocks over is Davidson Elementary. So a traffic study is needed. I saw some partial documents already. So if he can apply for the conditional use permit the right way as it should have been, I have no objection, but it has to be done the proper way, noticing the residents in that area the proper way as well, not by changing one word or having a typographical error. That is unacceptable. We're talking about litigation. As soon as a post came up online questioning me because I'm the council person, I honestly just said property owner, who it was, what the project was, and to come out to the neighborhood association because they will be in attendance. I think that's going to be a good forum for the county and the property owner to provide any sort of answer any questions, concerns that the community may have, so that when they build that project, it is feasible for the people who live in that area. That is my concern. Remember, I just got sworn in on December 19th. I didn't know about it in full capacity until January of this year, January 25th, when we met. And, it was presented to me as a done deal. I had no other recourse or what else to do, but I would highly suggest that our staff also listen to the DERC meetings and the Planning Commission.
Very good. Thank you. Councilman Mulvihill.
I guess I'd like to ask Terry, how far has the project gone? Have you seen how much has been constructed? Because I guess the mention as far as if they've actually started putting in concrete, that they do have a what's the word, to continue building.
It's my understanding they just started turning dirt. They've started grading, according to Michael Henley.
They just started grading?
Mm-hmm.
So it really wouldn't be an issue to, I guess how long, you need to consider things that are going on before you make a decision, I guess. You're not ready to talk about it tonight. Obviously, I think 2 weeks is a lot longer than I think the residents are looking forward to. Is there some way that we could, when do you think you might be able to pass judgment on this?
As I mentioned,
well, I mean, Terry, tomorrow, go ahead. I'm asking questions.
There is a public meeting tomorrow night. I don't know if we'll be prepared to answer all of their questions, but we should be able to answer some of them. As I said, Mike Huntley, who's sitting here now, can answer maybe some of them tonight, but we'd prefer to gather all of it and go over with legal with it before we respond.
When do you think you might be able to do that? By the end of the week?
For the council's benefit, we've been actually looking at this for probably about a week and a half, to be honest with you. So there's been information that came into us. I've spent a lot of time with my staff asking them a lot of questions, going through the project folder, and putting all the facts together. I think it's important for us to sit down with legal counsel, kind of explain the process, what the process was, and what information we have. And I think really at this point, it may not be the building we're talking about, but it's the overall use of the building itself. That's the biggest concern, how the building is going to be used. And I think what might be beneficial is, for us to hear what the county and the property owner has to say tomorrow night. I know that a number of us in the city will be represented at that meeting, including myself, I believe, in the city manager too. And I'd really like to hear what the county has to say. I've even had a chance to go out to the existing TAD facility, walk into the building and really get more facts about how that facility operates. But to give everyone a fair opportunity, I think it's important for us to be involved in the meeting. And I think probably sometime next week, after discussing the issue with legal counsel, we'll be able to provide some clear-cut direction.
I hate to say that maybe we could be a special session called.
Well, if I may, Mayor.
It's an important issue, obviously, for the neighborhood.
Wow, Jim, you want a special meeting? That's great.
Okay, well.
City Attorney.
Again, you're not prepared to make any kind of
No, I'm not prepared to make
discussion
Please,
tonight.
Ms. City Attorney, go ahead.
I would like to provide you some important, and I hope you'll really listen to this legal advice, because the law says that if a person, a developer, constructs improvements in good faith reliance on a governmental authorization, a vested right may apply. We have a lot of investigation to do. Did this developer pursue permits that we granted already? He's out there doing some grading, based in good faith, or was there some misrepresentation? That's one issue. The second issue we need to look at, and I think it's really important, Mr. Huntley referred to it, is you have two different issues going on. You have a developer that applied to construct something. Is that constructed project able to be constructed in that zone currently? Can he, in fact, build a building, concrete? Is it the building itself that's illegal? I would offer to you that it's not. The building, the concrete itself is not the problem. The problem is the intended use. It's the use that requires the conditional use permit. So I really think we need some time to look into this, because I'm just concerned that if you tonight direct your city manager to issue a stop work order on a construction project that you may have the right to construct, the real legal issue is, do they have a right to use the building without the CUP? And we have some time to deal with that use issue. So I know that this is really of concern to your community. I think staff is on top of it. But I want to make sure you do this right, because what you don't want to do is do it the wrong way, incur liability on the construction side, when really what you want to do is stop the use. At least I'm hearing that, so the use you want to stop.
Well, I guess I'm still asking the questions. I guess if, now, the meeting tomorrow night, is the builder going to be there? Was there a question about that? I guess the county's going to be there?
It's actually a neighborhood association council meeting,
Correct.
and the city's been invited.
Correct. So my understanding is I had a discussion with the assistant director of the TAD office, and he indicated that him and or another rep will be at the meeting tomorrow night, as well as the developer or property owner of the site. And did indicate to him that I'll be there, and I believe the city manager will be there also from the city.
Well, it seems that given talking about the vested rights and so forth, I would assume that in good faith the builder should probably be there, but also to probably stop what he's doing in simply a good faith measure, because there is a great deal of concern with regard to the concern of the neighborhood.
Right. We always have the ability to go in and seek an order, some type of injunctive relief to prevent the use from beginning, if that's what it comes to. And I think that we have some time. If I'm hearing the council correctly, and all the people that spoke this evening, it's that use that concerns you the most. So even if, let's just say hypothetically, this developer finished the project, let's say, I hope that if he is relying on the county lease revenue to pay off that loan, the construction, that he might want to proceed with great caution here, knowing that his proposed use may not be permitted without a CUP.
And I guess at this point in time, I'm going to be voting against the motion simply because I think we could delay a day and to find out more information about what's taking place, and again, just to see, what the progress is, and the information's going to become available.
I just want to make sure you understand there are remedies to the city short of directing your city manager to issue the stop order without all the information.
Mr. Mulvihill, I think it's reasonable, and based on the suggestion from our city attorney, I think we need to listen to our city council, our city attorney, and so I think there's compromise here at the table. Councilman Nickel, you have a compromise to amend your motion.
I will go ahead and amend my motion to allow the city manager to, within 1 week, report back to the council on what action is recommended, what findings have occurred, Obviously, I would assume that the city manager still has within her discretion the ability to issue a stop work order if it's necessary. So I would just simply ask now, I want to make sure we protect, again, the city, we protect the developer, we protect the community. Dirt is moving, equipment's out there, construction's started. We have no time to waste. So I
Very
will
good.
amend
If I
my
may- if I-
motion
before
within a week.
that happens, I'd like to make a comment if that's possible, because I do have a concern here, because it's going to be a matter of interpretation, and if I could get some counsel from legal, I do believe that this contractor is building this building in good faith, that this will be a tab building for the county. Not that he will be allowed to build the building, but that he will build this building for a particular customer. So the litigation will still happen, and this city may be out more money because we continue to allow the construction to occur and allow that interest in that vested interest to mature. So my concern is that we're going to continue to allow this, and I do believe that I can't, but I would like legal to tell me, is it possible that a judge could see this, that the intended interest, that the good faith was to build this building as a tab building, not to build the building, but to build this building for a particular use, for a particular customer?
I believe, I've just asked our staff, and that's why we need more information. I believe that there is an existing lease or a proposed lease between the county and the builder. So yes, we understand there's a proposed use, but the point is, it's the use that is bothering you. It's not the building. It's the builder who has to make a financial and economic decision on whether he's going to continue to move dirt and build, knowing that the city of San Bernardino staff, council, community will do everything it can to make sure that they comply with your code before the use begins. That really becomes something that the developer has to ask himself. Is his proposed tenant going to be in compliance with your rules? I'm putting on the record publicly, based on what I know right now, that he won't be, that potentially it might require a conditional use permit. I think that's what we've heard tonight. But that's really different from allowing him to construct his building. What he intends to do with his building is really irrelevant at this moment. You've issued him a permit to build. He may need an additional permit before his tenant can be again operating within that building.
So I want to make sure I understand this correctly before we move on. You may be saying that the contractor is not acting in good faith because he must be aware now that he may not be in compliance.
It's not him. He's the contractor. A property
But he's the
owner,
one we would pay.
Okay, so if you own a
damages
building,
too.
but if you own a building and you lease it out to a tenant, and the tenant needs a conditional use permit, the tenant has to go get the conditional use permit before the tenant can operate. It's the tenant that is going to have the use that needs to get the permit. The building owner simply leases out land to people. He builds a building and then he gives someone a lease and says, you can use my building for 5 years at $100,000 a year in rent. The tenant is the person who's using it. The tenant also has to comply with the law. But if he has a contract or if he has a permit from the city to build, you can't just jump ahead of that process. Even if you know the lease is out there, you can't stop his construction at this moment just because he's going to use it for that. What you can do is go seek some injunctive relief to make sure that the tenant doesn't start to operate. What you can do is put him on notice that you aren't going to allow this without a conditional use permit. Those are the things you can do. And I think you need to give us some time. I do not believe that the city will be unnecessarily, and people could disagree on this, but I don't believe that you are going to be unnecessarily harmed, you the city, by putting the county on notice and putting the owner on notice that they've got to get a conditional use permit before they start.
I just want to add quickly, it has been made, I have received information that the developer does intend to use this for the stated purpose of a social services facility. And that being now knowledge by the council, by staff, does that knowledge now constitute an affirmation of this project and the propriety of this project, knowing that a conditional use permit was not issued?
Here's what I would offer. Let staff do our work. If we determine that a conditional use permit is going to be required, with the city manager and the director have complete discretion to issue that letter to the property owner immediately.
The city attorney, let's conduct business here back at the table. There's a motion amended by Councilman Nickel. Restate your motion, sir.
Yeah, the motion is to direct the city manager to report back to the council within 7 days.
August 14th at 5 p.m.
By August 14th, 5 p.m. on the findings related to this matter and whatever corrective action needs to be taken.
That's a compromise to his previous. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Very good. All right.
About the timing of the 14th, did you say, at 5 o'clock? Notification, is that going to be done in a special meeting, or can it be done via electronics, email?
How about that?
Just a briefing, and if we decide
how about via
at that time,
email, the city manager?
Okay.
Would that be all right?
So we don't have to convene a meeting unless we determine after that we need
Some
to.
action needs to be taken.
Very good. All right, members, if you would please cast your vote.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Barra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mr. Charette? Mr. Nichols?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
And Mr. Mulvihill? The item passes 6-1 with Mr. Charette voting no.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to our public hearings. Ms. City Manager, we are trying to expedite and push things and conduct our business. You have an announcement on items 4 and 6?
I do. Item number 4 is in relation to the municipal code chapter, several municipal code chapters to pertaining to appeal provisions, and we'd like to hold that over for 2 weeks and continue it to allow more time and perhaps send it back to LRC to review.
Very good. And
Item number 6, which is the cannabis business permit location change request, we'd also like more time and to continue that till
all
the
right.
next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. City Manager. Item number 5 on public hearings. If there's any item, member of the audience who wishes to address the City Council, this is a public hearing on fiscal year 2019-20 assessment levies for previously formed assessment districts. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to speak on item number 5? Seeing none,
Mayor,
our
if I
staff
may?
report.
If I may?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a conflict on 2019-195 and 2019-225.
So noted on your abstention, and we will, when the time is ready, we'll make sure that she is taken care of. However, let's proceed with the staff report. Mr. Kishta.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The item before you tonight is the public hearing on the fiscal year 2019-20 assessment levies for previously formed assessment districts. The recommendation before you tonight is to hold the public hearings and adopt resolution numbers 2019-190 through 2019-251 of the Mayor and the City Council, confirming the diagram and assessment.
I would like to move for approval on this item.
Second.
Okay, with the abstentions noted, Ms. City Attorney, how would we like to handle Ms. Mayor Pro Tem's abstention?
Just state for the record what this conflict is based upon.
Conflict is that I own property near and around that area.
So noted.
Very good. If members would please cast their vote. If there is consensus rather than roll call, let's do that. If there's any objectors, please state your objection. Otherwise, it's so carried. All right, moving on to item number 7, substantial amendment for CDBG and fiscal year 2019-20 action plan. Any members of the audience, item number 7. If there's any members of the audience who'd like to address the City Council. Very well, seeing none, we'll move to our staff report for substantial amendment, item number 7.
Mayor, we have Gretel Noble, our housing manager, and Maria Gallegos, our analyst in the housing department, to give this presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. My name is Maria Gallegos, Administrative Analyst with the Housing Division of the Community and Economic Development Department. The City of San Bernardino is an entitlement jurisdiction that receives Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Home Investments Partnerships Program, HOME, Neighborhood Stabilization Program, NSP, and Emergency Solutions Grant, ESG, funds directly from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. When a substantial change such as adding activities, canceling activities, or a reduction of funds is proposed, the city's action plan must be amended. The city is required to notify the public, and a public hearing must be held to allow the public an opportunity to comment on the proposed changes. Since the approval of the city's draft fiscal year 2019-2020 action plan by the City Council on May 15, 2019, 2 additional activities have come up that need inclusion into this year's action plan, which require a substantial amendment under HUD regulations. The 2 additional activities proposed for the fiscal year 2019-20 action plan are 1, the Arrowhead Grove Phase 2. Funding for this project in the amount of $830,000 in home funds is proposed for 184 rental housing units. This makes up 147 affordable units, 35 market rate, and 2 manager units. Phase 2 of Arrowhead Grove is a $79 million development project scheduled to begin construction in September 2019. The home regulations require that all funds from fiscal year 2014 and prior year allocations be expended within 5 years. HUD will deobligate any funds that are not expended within the 5-year deadline, and such funds will be returned to the federal treasury. Between 2015 and 2018, the County of San Bernardino Community Development and Housing Agency managed the city's home funds under a consortium agreement. Consequently, the city was not funding home programs, and those funds were being held in the city's account. Rather than sending back the dollars, Arrowhead Grove has need for additional funds, and the project presents an opportunity for the city to use those dollars. And activity number 2 is the Home Program Regulation 24 CFR 92.300 requires that at least 15% of the city's home funds to be set aside for specific activities which are to be undertaken by community housing development organizations, also known as CHODO. A CHODO is a private nonprofit community-based organization that has staff with the capacity to develop affordable housing for the community it serves. Therefore, $191,964 of the 2019-2020 home allocation is designated for CHODO use for new construction of 2 houses for first-time home buyers. Income will range 50% to 80% of area median income. And just on a side note, staff will need to submit this action plan to HUD electronically by no later than August 9th. This concludes my presentation, and my housing manager and I are available to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll open up for comments from council members. Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion to accept it.
I move to
I'll second.
adopt the
Wow,
substantial
we're winning,
amendments.
folks. Move in a second.
Move that adopt the substantial
Move the
amendment
floor.
and direct the finance director
Oh,
to
man, we're
revise the
doing
fiscal
good.
year pursuant to the substantial amendment.
Okay, very good. A move in a second by Ted. And if there's no objectors, please, members, speak loud and clear. Otherwise, it's so carried and so ordered. Very good. Moving on to item. Thank you, staff. We appreciate it. Thank you for your patience tonight. Consent calendar. Let's move on to our consent calendar. You'll notice our public, we are adjusting it, and we appreciate Terry, for our city manager, for making those accommodations and kind of shuffling our order. We will poll council members, and Council Member Sanchez, any polls?
No polls.
Council Member Barham?
No polls.
Very good. Council Member Figueroa?
None.
Councilman Nick, Charette? Oh, my goodness. You're the mood wrecker. Okay, 19, all right. Councilman Nickel?
I have no polls, but a question on number 12, if I may quickly.
Go for it.
I assume we will own this equipment once it's installed and will be responsible for the maintenance cost, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Item, Mayor Pro Tem?
None tonight.
Very good. We're rolling. Jim, don't disappoint us.
I will.
Oh, well, go
Item
ahead.
number 24.
All right, sir. Anything else?
No.
Very good. I move the balance. All right, moved by Councilman Nickel. The second by Mayor Pro Tem. Members would please cast their vote. If there's no objections, the balance is so ordered. Item number 19 was pulled by Councilman Charette. Thank you. My question is very simple, and that is, where's the money coming from? And I guess I should have probably just asked that about every item on here that is asking for any additional money. If it's budgeted, fine. If it's not, where's it coming from?
Finance Director can address that.
I guess maybe I should make a statement then along these lines. The reason I ask this is because we've been cutting into our reserves at a pace that is not good. And I'm not going to be, I'll just go on record right now, I guess in lieu of in the case of just a horrendous emergency, I am not going to be supporting this 100,000 here and 200,000 there and 50,000 here that's coming out of reserve funds in the future. I'm done with taking from our reserves. We've spent almost we've gone from 40 million when we came out of bankruptcy to now we're down around $25 million, and it's going down fast, and we're talking about deficits going forward. We need that here on hand for a real emergency, and I won't say which city manager told me this, but over my period I've been with a lot of different city managers, and they, believe it or not, said can always find $100,000 somewhere. So, and I think they meant that literally, that, yep, we can find it somewhere, so find it. So if it's coming from reserves, I'm against it. If it's not, then, okay, let's go.
Thank you, Councilman Charette. The question's been asked by a council member. The staff would like to respond and address the issue. The city manager.
Mayor, at mid-year this year, the city attorney's office thought they were going to have a budget savings of about $230,000. Unfortunately, because of some of the litigation that's come up, they went over budget from that. And so what they're requesting now is they need another $100,000. Paul, is that coming from reserves?
What had happened is during mid-year, the city attorney's budget had cut their budget roughly around $230,000. As we got to the end of the year, they realized they may have trimmed that budget a little bit too much. What they're asking for, the $230,000 effectively, is could they appropriate $100,000? So at the end of the day, they've really cut their budget about $130,000. They were a little bit excited about their budget cuts, and as a finance director, and you're a finance director, I'm like, I can't shame them for that. But they did trim it a little bit too much. It's their first year of actually looking into this, and some things come up during the year, and now they're asking for $100,000 of it back.
I understand all that. I agree with it, but you still haven't told me where it's coming from. There's only one place, two places it can come from. Somewhere else in the budget that's already budgeted,
yes, sir,
or the reserves. And I don't support taking anything more from the reserves. Period. We've been approving things that I believe we don't need in order to operate on a daily basis. And this is no reflection on you, sir. You're new at this, and I appreciate it. Appreciate you, Terry. I've putting my foot down now tonight as not dipping into the reserves anymore until we need it for what a reserve is made for. Coming out of the reserve.
Well, if I can just make one.
I'm sorry. Let's let staff respond. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. If I can make one comment. At mid-year, when the city attorney's office was looking at their budget, they determined they can cut $230,000 approximate out of their budget. That $230,000 went to reserves. And now at the end of the year, they realized they cut $100,000 a little bit too much. What they'd like to do is appropriate $100,000 of the $230,000 they put into reserves back to get them through the year.
And may I also just address one other question, just so it's clear to the council? I know it's getting late, but I want the council to know that what as you see as the rest of this report here, is that when we made the assumption that we could cut the $230,000, it was based on agreements that the city had already entered into. Prior to the engagement of our firm, for example, you would enter into an agreement with Cole Huber. You had a $250,000 cap on that. That agreement, as I understand it, was for the people that were in the in-house operation, went to that law firm, and they were continuing to provide you legal services. No fault of their own at all, as litigation is expensive and it's unanticipated. They came back with a request to increase that cap because it was justified. And so that's largely what's driving this request. So the assumptions that were made originally were good assumptions based on these caps and everything. And the work that was done by this firm is excellent work, and they need to be paid for it. So that's partially driving this. If we don't make this change, then people who have provided the good services won't be paid.
I appreciate all that. I get all that. I'm not going to support drawing from our reserves anymore until we need it for an earthquake or something like that.
Very good. Thank you, Councilman. Is there a motion of support for the recommendation on the floor from a council member?
Move to approve.
Second, anyone? Second on the floor motion. Floor motion is to authorize the finance director, and we've had some deliberation and crosstalk. We appreciate our staff. The staff is recommending this motion. We need it. It's the services that have been rendered for professional services. Is there a motion to support Councilman Sanchez?
Mayor?
This member?
I'll second it, but like my colleague likes to say, with a caveat that moving forward, when we have these proposed contracts coming before us, that there is somewhere showing where the money is coming from, what funds, and if it's in their department, if it's on the reserve. So that would be my only suggestion.
Very good. Fair enough. So noted. Thank you, Councilmember Barr, for your support. Members, if there's no objections, I know we have one. Councilman Charette?
I'm going to vote no to as well.
Very good. So noted, and the item moves. All right, moving on to item number 24.
Mr. Mayor, I really think we should be calling for voice votes or do it electronically. I don't know if it's available electronically, but I don't like this idea of just, I want people to be on record, and I want to have people say what they're voting for.
Our electronic vote system
Are they back
should
up,
be up.
Gigi?
It'll be up next time.
Okay, very good. So let's ensure that on the next council meeting, you get all the bugs and kinks worked out so we can honor Councilman Charette's. All right, moving on to item number 24. We have finished our consent calendar item, and we thank our...
I asked the question about the China delegation update is going to be referred to a committee. The city paid for part of that, and I think we have an ordinance that says that if the city paid for it, that we get a presentation.
Mr. Mulvihill, I am going to present that.
Okay.
So, yes.
It's not on the consent calendar, though. You got here.
You pulled it. I don't know why you mentioned item 24 to be a pull, but...
Yeah, because it just says here, reports and council meetings attended, and it says items to be referred to committee.
Well, this is, it's
two separate items. Two separate items. The first one, items to be referred to committee, is for you to refer items to the committee, and then another item is the reports on conferences.
Just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, very good. If there are items to be referred to the committee, members would please announce those recommendations. All right, very good. Reports on conferences and meetings, item number 24. Councilmember Figueroa and I recently returned from our economic development trip to China. While there, we had the opportunity to visit 4 major cities: Shanghai with a population of 28.5 million people, Wuxi with a population of 6.7 million people, Yangzhou with a population of about 4.5 million, and Zhejiang with a population of 3.1 million. And each one of us, each of which had a population, certainly as noted, over 3 million. We had many early meetings and mornings and late nights, meetings with various business owners and government officials. I believe there is huge potential for San Bernardino by creating strong ties and alliances with these cities. This ongoing relationship represents an opportunity for significant job growth and an increase in investment here in San Bernardino. As the president of the Airport Authority Board, we hope to leverage our ties to bring a booming import and export industry to the San Bernardino International Airport. I met with business leaders in the healthcare and biotech industries and various consumer goods and electronic manufacturers and producers. These businesses are eager to expand and see San Bernardino International Airport as a great entryway to our Southern California region. I've also been in communication with local farmers and ranchers in Central California to enable them to expand their reach and connect them to international export opportunities. In fact, I'll be leveraging conversations with cherry ranchers and farmers, pistachio, almond, walnut growers, and also avocado growers in the Central Valley as I take a tour up in that area. We believe this is a first step in a continuing meaningful conversation overseas. San Bernardino must remain very competitive in the region, and I believe that these relationships will allow us to do so. Councilmember Figueroa?
Yes, absolutely. Not to repeat everything that you just said, but for many years, San Bernardino has had kind of a, chain and padlock to new growth and development. And what this does is it takes a pair of bolt cutters and takes those chains off those fences and tells the world, tells everyone that we are ready for growth, we are ready for development, and we welcome you. I have a pretty good understanding of the medical field. I was able to utilize while I was out there as far as medical equipment, research and development. One of the examples of the businesses that we were able to meet with out there was Wuxi Biologics. They recently invested $60 million to establish their presence in the United States, specifically in the suburbs of Boston, Massachusetts. They focus on biologics technology discovery, development. They built a state-of-the-art biologics clinical and commercial manufacturing facility. They have an interest in expanding to the west coast of the United States. In fact, that they had mentioned that they were looking at going over to San Diego. What we were able to do is intercept that and present San Bernardino as an opportunity. Reason being is because San Bernardino isn't just a city but a regional leader in the area. We have universities in this area that focus on medical needs, medical schools. Loma Linda University Medical Center, UCR, has a medical school as well. Cal State San Bernardino could provide other engineering and technical opportunities. And what this does is invites certain businesses to come out and so that we can start creating higher paying jobs for our residents in this area as well. There were other opportunities, other businesses that we were able to meet with. One of them being a business that specializes in non-invasive assessment capabilities as far as, in fact, they were able to get to within the 98% accuracy compared to what a biopsy would be able to come to. And this was specific to hepatic failure, which is very high in the Asian community as well, which I know, especially in my ward, there is a high Asian community in my area as well. So that was just another example of a company that was looking to expand their manufacturing opportunities in the United States as well. And so we were able to market San Bernardino as being an opportunity for them to have their presence in the United States. So.
Thank you very much. We appreciate Councilmember Figueroa for his attendance. We at this time will adjourn our meeting. The next joint regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council.
Point of order.
Councilman Sanchez.
Yes, I'd like to move to direct the city manager to place an item on the next agenda to send out a request for proposal to handle the city's prosecutions, advise code enforcement, represent the city before the hearing officer, and handle the city's abatement actions. In conversation with my colleagues, it has become clear that we've become frustrated with the slow response and the weak prosecution of those repeat offenders of our code enforcement. And if I am wrong, I would love to hear one of my colleagues speak up about that, because they have all been adamant, at least with me, that this has been a major issue and we need to tackle this. My second council meeting, we had terminated the contract with Jones and Myers. We put in place as a stopgap BB&K as our prosecution. Am I correct?
Councilman
so has there been no?
Councilman Sanchez, let's we're almost ready to conclude, but let's provide some context, sir, on just because the item during public hearing was item number 4. Is that what you're still referencing?
No.
Okay, this is a different matter?
Yes, different matter entirely.
Very good. Please continue, sir.
So I want an RFP to go out to have law firms submit proposal to the city to do code enforcement prosecutions.
If I may, it wasn't a stopgap. We actually approved an agreement with BB&K to provide those services now. So that just started July 1st.
No, when was that? When was that approval made?
July 1st, because the agreement with Jones and Mayer expired on
June 30th. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the second meeting.
So you're saying that the
17th of July.
council contracted with BB&K. Which item was that on which council meeting? Because I do not remember that. I believe that this council wants an aggressive approach to code enforcement violations, and I want an RFP to go out for those prosecutions. I want a law firm that's going to go after.
Mr. Sanchez, just a moment. Ms. City Attorney, the reference point that we issued was that Jones Mayer's contract was coming to conclusion, and that the services were offered in memo service or memo update to the council. The item came before the council, and what was the contract? Walk us through your contract. Walk us through prosecution services that you afford the council via BBK.
So just so that everyone knows, when you contracted with Best Best and Krieger, you had at least 6 or 7 other law firms under contract to the city. We have been going through a process at the direction of council, to try to consolidate as much as we can so that we have one cook in the kitchen, and where necessary, we bring in special counsel. We still have some special counsel so that we can coordinate services better. Their code enforcement operation was getting direction from sort of like 3 different sources. They were getting code enforcement direction from Jones and Mayer. They're getting some type of enforcement action from Cole Huber, because there were still some attorneys with that firm that were advising the city on some cannabis enforcement issues. And then they started to get some code enforcement or administrative hearing advice from Best Best and Krieger. That information was brought to the city council at that meeting 2 weeks ago. You had an option. You could have renewed the contract with Jones and Mayer. You could have moved the work to someone else. You could have RFP'd it. The recommendation at that time was to contract with the digital services with Best Best and Krieger to see if that might get this stuff moving.
Wait, do which services?
The code enforcement services, the prosecution portion of code enforcement services. So that agenda item was brought to you, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, 17th of July, and that was explained to the council. And that was a decision because we'd gotten some previous direction. We had some success on the Elks Lodge, for example, and we were demonstrating. We're happy to do whatever you want. That was the direction we got, and the contract's about 1 month old, so we're trying to make up some time and try to show you some progress.
Well, until, in all honesty, until I see that action from City Council, I cannot recall that action being taken. All I can remember is that we had terminated the contract with Jones and Mayer. We had done that I remember this. It was the second council meeting that I attended, the first council meeting in January, and it was presented to us as a stopgap. And in the interim, as a stopgap, so BB&K would do prosecutions as a stopgap, so that there wouldn't be a lapse in prosecutions of code enforcement violations.
Don't recall that at all. Not at all. We've never, Best Best and Krieger did not provide any prosecution services at all until
Let's bring this
July
back
1st.
home. The member has requested the RFP. Is there a second to the motion to add that to the next agenda, council members? If not,
I'll second it just for
discussion?
Yeah.
For discussion.
For vote.
Okay, so discussion on the matter. Councilmember Nickel.
Well, I do have concern about our overall code enforcement regime in terms of how we are conducting code enforcement, how we are paying for code enforcement, how we are enforcing code enforcement. I think I want to get a sense of what the plan is. I think what I'm hearing from a lot of constituents is a frustration that items are getting reported. I'm also concerned that we are using general fund dollars to subsidize code enforcement in a way that I think Potentially, I'd like to explore the use of an enterprise fund, a mechanism in which we can recycle those funds that come from our code enforcement operations back into expanded code enforcement. And I think what I'd like to do is initiate a conversation as to what that would look like if staff can provide some sense of where we are currently with our code enforcement operations and whether or not we can anticipate some kind of a discussion in terms of some other models we might look at, really to step up and increase code enforcement citywide if possible. So I do support in concept exploring what options are available in terms of code enforcement and assessing how we can improve the program.
So to be clear, my motion was to have the staff come back with a draft proposal, a draft RFP that the council would then approve and send out. Of course, if this proves to be true, then the situation may change. But I still want to direct staff that they come back with a draft RFP for prosecution of code enforcement violations.
Councilman, you're gaining some votes here in support. I asked for let's work with our staff now. I think you're winning, so let's hear from staff.
I'm happy to come back with a report on code enforcement. Why don't we do that first?
Okay.
It won't be at the next meeting. You'll have to give us a little bit of time to pull that together, but we're happy to do that before you make any decisions.
No, my motion stands. I do want a draft RFP to come back to this city council next council meeting, because what will happen is we will have a report, and it will be it'll be a receive and file, and that will be it. I want the city to take a proactive approach. I heard from council argument after argument about how prosecutions are not aggressive enough, and now we're standing back. I want this RFP to go out.
Councilman, I appreciate your passion. I thank you for your eagerness to get and resolve issues. We need to work with our staff. If you're winning here, we need to work with them. There is a process to RFP. There is our Miss City Manager is nodding her head. She can't do it within that time frame. So let's be reasonable. And if that's your passion, desire, I understand that. I appreciate that. But let's work with our staff so that we can get a policy discussion here. So if we can have some compromise here, I think we can accommodate the interest for a discussion on RFP.
Mayor, can I just make a comment? I found it. It was June 19th meeting, 2019.
June 19th meeting.
And it was item number 27.
Item number 27. Councilmember Mulvihill. All right, so there is a motion and a second. Is there support? Let's go ahead and call.
Can I take a voice vote on this?
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Ms. Ibarra?
Yes.
Mr. Figueroa?
Yes.
Mr. Charette? Mr. Nickel?
No.
Ms. Richard?
No.
Mr. Mulvihill? The item fails 4-3.
Okay, let's call this meeting to adjournment, folks. We thank you for your presence here tonight. The next joint regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council and the Mayor and City Council acting as a successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency will be held on Wednesday, August 21 at Feldheim Library, located at 555 West 6th Street. Closed session will begin at 5:30 p.m. and open session will begin at 7 p.m. Thank you and have a good night.
Mayor. I have some questions.
Mr. Mulvihill, did you see?